So we're going to talk about the rise of self-driving cars. Next, I'm going to talk about driver struggles and labor issues. I haven't been doing much of this in the past, but I think it's important to do it. I haven't really been talking about rideshare safety and crime. And so I'm going to start highlighting those things, but they will be towards the end of the stream. The first thing we're going to talk about is the rise of autonomous vehicles. Sometimes I feel like I'm crazy. I feel like I'm in the minority of believing that self-driving cars are a threat to Uber and Lyft drivers. Whenever I talk about it, especially in some of these Facebook groups or even on Twitter, some of the common responses I get from people are, oh, I asked my passengers, my 10 passengers that I pick up, every day, if they would get into a self-driving car. And the answer is no. I've realized that new things take a while to catch on. So I'm not oblivious to that. But I'm also old enough to know that eventually things catch on. If Henry Ford asked people what they wanted, they would have said faster horses. They wouldn't have said cars. It takes a while for people to accept new ideas. And I think it's going to be the same with self-driving cars. And some of the stories I prepared for you guys today are going to show you that they're picking up steam. Yes, people might think that they would never get into one until they do. And then now all they want to do is to get into one. It's slowly going to happen, but it's going to happen for sure. And another talking point I want to address early before we dive into these stories is drivers think that self-driving cars have to replace them completely. When they think about it, I still have time. They won't be replacing me for about 5-10 years. My rebuttal to that is they don't have to replace you. They just have to change the market enough to make driving not worth it. So for starters, even before self-driving cars were introduced into any market, drivers were already feeling pinched. Drivers are already complaining that, okay, pay is going down. Uber is complaining that, yeah, these insurances are going up. We have to squeeze someone. It has to be you or it has to be the passenger, or it could be both. And it's weird. We'll acknowledge that pay has been decreasing, especially since pandemic levels. But the second we start talking about the introduction of self-driving cars in markets, we start thinking to ourselves, that's not going to have an effect on me. Some drivers don't even like drivers talking about how much money they're making because it would encourage other drivers to come to their market and make money. They don't like the referral bonuses because it encourages drivers to tell other drivers and lowers the pool. Here's what I want you to imagine. What if there was a self-driving car that started tomorrow? And when they started by doing 150,000 rides per week. They're not going to replace you, but they're going to have an impact on the surges, especially if you're an Uber driver. And let's say Uber partners with one of these companies. And when a passenger pulls up the app to decide to take a ride, they have the choice between a self-driving car and a human. Even if, and these stats are about these, I have to go and find the stats, but this is about what it is right now. About 30% of the people are picking Waymos. That doesn't sound like a lot, but that's cutting into what wouldn't have existed otherwise if there weren't self-driving cars. So I wanted to say that before we dive into some of these stories. I just want to let you guys know that I do feel crazy because I feel like I'm in the minority of this belief system. But as business owners, you do rideshare. I consider you a business owner. Even if you don't want it to happen, I don't want it to happen. I think it's going to happen. We should be prepared for that case, even if we're wrong. I would rather be prepared and wrong than be unprepared. And so let's jump into that first story. So the first story that we have is Waymo's Robotaxis are now available to everyone in Los Angeles. Before, there was a waitlist, and now there is no waitlist. Waymo is ditching its waitlist in Los Angeles, much like it did before in Phoenix and San Francisco, making its fully autonomous vehicles available to anyone who downloads the company's Waymo One app. So that's 3 markets. And I want to point out that in Phoenix specifically, I'm not sure about the other 2 places, but in Phoenix specifically, people can order Waymos through the Uber app. There are still some geographic limitations with which to contend. Waymo only operates within 80 square miles of Los Angeles County, which includes neighborhoods such as Hollywood, Chinatown, Westwood, Marina del Rey, Mar Vista, and Playa Vista. I don't know. I'm probably butchering these names. And if you're a driver, and I work in Charleston, if Waymo came out and said, hey, we're only going to operate in downtown Charleston, maybe 90% of the rides I do are in downtown Charleston. So that would hurt me. And my strategy is actually to focus on short rides. And that's what Waymos do very well. They probably focus on short rides. So even if they're not doing longer rides, even if they're not available in the total parts of the city, if they're encroaching on any part that you drive in, it's a problem. And they've recently started driving to the airport and on highways in Phoenix. Still, it was a sign of the company's growing confidence in its technology, especially after securing a record $5.6 billion investment round led by its parent company, Alphabet. So for those of you who don't know, Alphabet is the company that owns Google. Google used to be its own company, and then they decided to Google, the people in Google decided to create another company called Alphabet, in which Google is under. So it's not like someone bought Google. They spun off and then restructured. Waymo is owned by Alphabet. So essentially, the people at Google are the people at Alphabet, are the people at Waymo. And that's very important because the next set of points I'm going to make a little later is very important because one of the major pushbacks that we get a lot is the microeconomics or the unit economics of how much it costs to go out and get a car and what they need to price their rides at to make back their money. It's going to play a role into that, and we'll get into that later. After securing a record $5.6 billion investment round led by its parent company, Alphabet, to fund its next phase of growth, Waymo recently said it was conducting 150,000 paid rides and driving over 1 million fully autonomous miles every single week. And that's in those 3 cities. Looking back, it took Waymo less than 1 year to open the service up to everyone after first launching its waitlist for select customers in Los Angeles. Waymo started testing the waters in LA back in the fall of 2023. The service went live in March 2024, and in April, the company started charging customers for its trips. So it started out as free, which that in itself, if you're someone who can't afford a car and you're strapped for cash, but you got to go to work, and previously you thought to yourself, man, I would never get into a self-driving car, but if you could try one for free, I think you would try it. And then based off of your experience with that car, you would determine, is this something I'd be willing to pay for, even if it's the same price as a human driver? That's not unreasonable. That's exactly like what I would do. If I could get a free ride to the airport for this trip I'm about to take to Vegas for Christmas, and it was free through a self-driving car, I'd try it. I might leave a little earlier just in case something happens. I don't want to miss my flight, but I would try it. I don't think that's an unreasonable take. Of course, Waymo is now in direct competition with human-powered transportation services like Uber and Lyft, both of which operate without any pesky geographic restrictions. Those services are often cheaper than Waymo's vehicles, and customers can expect shorter wait times. So there are some positives and negatives right now to it. Also, Waymo doesn't provide any airport trips to LAX, nor does it allow its vehicles to travel on highways yet. In a city as reliant on private autos as Los Angeles, it remains to be seen how useful Angelinos, is that a thing? Is that something you guys call yourselves? How useful Angelinos will find Waymo without being able to travel on the highway. The company hasn't said when it hopes to eventually expand its service to include airport and highway trips. And this is just LA. They are already doing airport and highway in Phoenix. But Waymo has novelty. I don't know why I'm pronouncing it different than how I'm seeing it. Waymo has novelty on its side, and its customers often give it high remarks for the ability to customize their rides, such as playing their own music and setting the temperature to their liking. This should not be controversial, but for some reason it is. I have seen posts where drivers complain when passengers want to play their own music, and I get that. So I have two phones. I have one phone that I use just for Uber and Lyft. That's my business phone, and then I have my personal phone. Instead of disconnecting my Bluetooth because I don't have an aux cord, I just give them my phone, which I can understand just physically giving someone your phone being an issue as well. I don't have an issue with it. It's whatever. But some people won't even play music that their passengers request. And I can understand it. You don't want to be playing DJ while you're driving. I can get it. But some people don't even want to change the temperature. I feel like sometimes we're just not accommodating enough of passengers. And if we're not going to accommodate our passengers, when they get into a self-driving car that gives them full range of accommodation, why wouldn't they go and take that? I expect people who watch this, who watch my channel, who watch my show, to be, moderately accommodating. I also expect you to have clean cars, to be good drivers, but I would also say that we're in the minority. I can't tell you how often I go to the airport, I'm waiting for the passenger to get to the pickup area, and I'm seeing the Uber or Lyft driver in front of me open up their trunk, and there's a bunch of garbage in there. And it's not actual garbage, but there's stuff in there that doesn't need to be in there if you're going to be a driver. It's sad how many people don't take, I don't want to say pride, but there is a connection between how you run your business and how well you're received by passengers and if they're going to tip you. And if you don't play to that, what's the point? I don't understand why you wouldn't. Now, it's an exciting time to welcome everyone in Los Angeles along for the ride. Our service has matured quickly and our riders are embracing the many benefits of fully autonomous driving. We're so grateful to all of our first rides in LA. What I want to see right now is, let's see if we can get a quick answer. Give me a timeline of how many rides per week Waymo does since they started. So in 2023, Waymo reached 50,000 paid rides per week. I think it was just in one city at the time. recent growth since October 2024, they've done 150,000. So in 1 year, they've gone from 50,000 to 150,000. That's not bad. Waymo's ride volume has grown exponentially over time, from a handful of test rides to over 150,000 per week. This growth has been driven by expanding service areas. Waymo is likely to continue to rapidly grow as it expands into new cities and increases. New cities. We're going to touch on that. We're going to touch on what new cities they have coming next. Let's move on to the next article. So this one is coming from Atlanta, and it's not a long one, but it's relevant to what we're about to talk about next. Atlanta Hartsfield Jackson, this is an actual press release from the actual airport. Atlanta Hartsfield Jackson Atlanta International Airport will move the pickup relocation for all approved transportation network companies, such as Uber and Lyft, to a designated area at the north lower level early Monday morning on November 15th. So this has happened already. This change consolidates all pickups to one location, making it easier for passengers and drivers. This move is expected to increase efficiency and allow rideshare drivers to enter and exit much faster. This dedicated pickup area will be used for rideshare only, removing the element of personal vehicles, commercial vehicles, and buses competing for parking space in the same area. So I think that this is a win for both passengers and drivers. I don't drive in Atlanta. I've been there. But the Atlanta airport is one of the biggest airports. And I suspect that Atlanta isn't doing this for the human drivers. Well, it's probably part of the reason. But Waymo has announced that they're coming to Atlanta. If Waymo can figure out how to operate in the busiest airport in the world, not just America, the world, I think it's going to be a problem, especially for those of you who rely on airport trips, who you shouldn't be doing that. I don't think airport trips are what they used to be anymore, but it's definitely going to put a damper in the airport strategy. So let's move on to the next. So this one's a press release directly from Lyft. When I share stories with you guys, I try to get as close to the source as possible, but be aware, when you go to the source, sometimes they like to toot their own horn, and I'm not here to make it seem like I'm trying to co-sign what they're saying. We're trying to be objective here. We'll pull the necessary information out. When I think they're just fluffing things up, I'll call them out too. So it says Lyft announces new round of autonomous partnerships. This is November 6th, about a month ago. One of North America's largest transportation networks announced plans for multiple autonomous vehicle partnerships to connect the Lyft community with the future AV rides in the Lyft app. It's a lot of words to say that they're partnering with companies that will offer self-driving cars in the same app as humans. Today, Lyft is announcing its next step in delivering AVs to millions of people. Lyft and Mobileye, a leader in self-driving tech and advanced driver assistance systems, plan to bring AVs to the Lyft network. Through this partnership, Lyft will make its scaled rideshare platform available to all vehicles with Mobileye's self-driving technology. So I'm not sure if what they're saying here is I'll be able to go out and buy a car that has this technology and operate it. That's the Tesla version of rideshare, where we can participate, or if they're just going to work with this one company in a similar fashion to how Waymo is on Uber, not really incorporating the average person. I think that I personally would like options where we as individuals can go out and get these self-driving cars and manage those fleet. I think that would be the better thing to do for society, generally speaking, if this technology is going in this direction regardless. But I'm not clear what they're saying here. It says vehicles equipped with Mobileye drive technology will hit the road Lyft ready, giving small and large fleet operators seamless access to Lyft's platform and network of riders to optimize their vehicles. Okay, so it sounds like, right, they'll give companies and people the opportunity to manage fleets, which I think is in both Lyft and Uber's best interests. Back when Uber tried to manage their own self-driving car, they literally killed someone. And they had a human driver in there. She was on her phone watching videos, and then she hit an old lady because the car couldn't recognize what that thing was in time enough to do something about it. So one, I think that Uber and Lyft can't stomach the price. So it's better for other people to burden. It's better for Uber and Lyft to focus on what they do well and relying on other people to manage that part of their business. So I think it's better for them. I think that if self-driving cars are going to come and be a problem for individuals, it's also better for us. It says, beyond pioneering a new distribution channel for AVs through its alliance with Mobileye, Lyft is solving for other key parts of the AV value chain with May Mobility and Nexar. So that's two other companies that they just thrown in here. It says May Mobility will directly deploy AVs to the Lyft platform in Atlanta starting 2025. So this sounds like an operator, but it's unsure if they're using this Mobileye's like technology. I guess we'll keep reading and find out. But it says Atlanta riders will have the opportunity to be matched with a fleet of autonomous Toyota Sienna minivans equipped with May Mobility's autonomous technology, a deployment that Lyft and May Mobility aim to scale over time across multiple markets. Okay, the reason I'm smiling so much right now is because I think if you want to go out and get a 7-seater, the absolute best 7-seater, in my opinion, is the Toyota Sienna. Let me pull it up. Toyota Sienna. The reason why I say the Toyota Sienna is because not all of the older ones are hybrid, but all of the newer ones are. So this is the Toyota Sienna. I think it's the best 7-seater. Let's see how much miles per gallon it gets. So it gets 36 gallons per mile, which if you have a regular car that's not a hybrid, that's like what those regular cars will get. So I think that for a 7-seater, for being so big and from being able to carry so much, being able to do 36 miles per gallon in a hybrid 7-seater is fantastic. I think that if I were to aim to be a 7-seater driver, this is what I would get. This is honestly what I would get. And I'm pro Toyota. I think they last long. I think their technology is great. I think they're focused on quality. They're not the, most appealing cars, but I'm here to make money, And so if I were to get a 7-seater, this would be it. I just can't. One, I would get it used. So when I was looking to replace my car, I did look at these, but I couldn't find a used Toyota Sienna that was hybrid. So currently, Toyota is making the commitment to put all of their car types, Camrys, Corollas, all of them on their hybrid systems, which is an excellent move. Very, very smart move. But that's something they've only recently decided. So a lot of the older Toyotas that were in my price range, they weren't hybrid. So I decided not to do it, and I decided to get a Prius instead, which I don't even know if I said it here, but yeah, I know I said it on Twitter, but I got a Prius after my accident. I still need to make the videos detailing my accident and what happened, but I got let me show you. I got a 2013 red Prius V. All right, so this is it. No, not the sexiest of cars, but I will say the interior is really good. This is the bigger model, the V. It's wider, it's longer, and it's really nice. I always get compliments of it, and I'm really happy with this purchase. I won't get into how much I paid for it. You're gonna have to watch the video for that, but I'm really glad I bought this. And on top of that, I've been telling you guys, like, if something were to happen to my car, I think a Prius is what I would do. And I'm happy that when it came time to actually like be in that position, I was really tested to see if my words of what I was preaching would be what I actually practice. And I'm proud of myself for humbling myself, because when it's time to buy a car, man, there's a lot of nice options out there, and I have to fight a lot of my internal wiring not to get a brand new car. I paid cash. I've been on the train, no debt. You shouldn't have a brand new car unless your net worth is over $1 million and you're paying cash. And I'm happy that I didn't fall into the trap of walking into a dealership and getting a loan, despite everything that I've been preaching. So pretty happy about that. So with Nexar and Lyft, we'll explore ways to harness the power of aggregated, anonymized marketplace and fleet data to help OEMs and AV companies build better and safer autonomous technology. So it looks like they're partnering with someone who's going to provide hardware. They're partnering with someone who's going to provide the service of maintaining the fleets. And they're partnering with someone who's going to help with the software to manage the data in the fleets. By pairing Lyft data with Nexar's hundreds of millions of hours of video footage, we can jointly contribute to a more complete data set for autonomous research and development. So Nexar they do have a dash cam line. And if you have one, it's very possible that you have been contributing to their learning and contributing to our own downfall. Let's see, where does Nexar get its video training data from? Nexar collects video training data from a crowdsourced network of dash cams mounted on cars around the world. Okay, interesting. Let's bring this into AI so we can kind of work our way through this. Lynn, hi. I appreciate you for coming here. I don't know what time you jumped in here, but I did give the Drivers Coast to Coast a huge shout out. Lynn is one of the co-hosts from that platform, and I'll give you guys a pretty huge shout out at the beginning of this. Told them to make sure they go over there and check you out. All right, so Nexar gets its video training data primarily from its network of dash cams. These dash cams are owned by everyday drivers who have voluntarily installed the Nexar app on their smartphones and use it in conjunction with their dash cams. Sounds like if you have a Nexar camera and you're using it, you are literally training data for self-driving cars. Isn't that crazy? Here's how it works. Nexar app and dash cams. Drivers install the Nexar app and connect it to their dash cams. While they drive, the app records video footage and other sensor data like location, speed, and acceleration. The app uploads anonymized clips of this to Nexar's cloud platform. Nexar focuses on collecting interesting events such as hard brakes, sharp turns, or potential collisions. This is red flags. As I'm reading this, I'm getting more and more red flags because even if it's anonymized, what if I park behind my wife and that anonymized data is still being sent to where people can now see her license plate? People can now see my house number. People can now see what my house looks like. So yeah, the data is anonymized, but you're literally training things based off of my habits and like where I live. And I hope that this is like opt-in and not opt-out. And what that means is people should have to intentionally press a button to say they want to send their data instead of people having to find a way to not send their data, because one of those is way more manipulative than the other. So let's see, can users opt out? Let's see if there's even an option to do that. So it says, yes, Nexar users can absolutely opt out of data collection. Through the app settings, you can easily disable data sharing within the Nexar app's settings menu. This gives you direct control over what information is collected and uploaded. So that's good that you can turn it off, but it sounds like it's on by default. So if you have an XR camera, go take care of this. It's important to note that opting out might affect certain features in the app that rely on data sharing, such as incident reports, real-time alerts, which is a bummer because this would be dope. I think you need that. Real-time alerts are kind of whatever. I can see why you would want that if you have like kids driving. Oh, no, see, I'm not reading. It says Nexar uses data to provide drivers with real-time alerts about potential hazards on the road. These alerts might be disabled if you opt out. I'd be okay with that, kinda. Yeah, I'd be okay with that because I get that information from my maps anyways. However, even if you opt out of data collection, Nexar will still store your recorded videos locally on your device's SD card. You can access and manage those recordings directly through the app. So yeah, definitely, they have a privacy policy. I don't want to dive that deep into it. You know what? Sure, why not? Let's quickly see what Nexar's privacy policy is. Let's do a quick scan. It's not even long. Wow. So it says privacy policy. Nexar's group is committed to protection of personal information in accordance with the Privacy Act of 1988. Nexar's group will connect only necessary personal information in accordance with our business purposes. That's so weird. Only necessary personal information. There's like no information should be necessary if it's personal. This will ensure we can deliver on our commitments to you regarding employment or services which have been asked for. This information may include name, addresses, gender, date of birth, contact details, and other details relevant to your employment. This looks like if you're this looks like if you're working for them. I don't even know if this is like Nexar USA. This is where you want to be. Sorry. All right, so this is effective date March 20th, 2024. They probably updated this recently because they're now using that data for AI stuff. It says, when providing our services, we may process personal data about different categories of individuals depending on their interaction with our services. Such categories, individuals who create an account with our service, either independently or on behalf of our corporate customers or as part of a fleet or a team of drivers, individuals who provide us with information through site or otherwise interact with the site, and prospect customers, partners, and participants our events and webinars may hold. Specifically, this privacy policy describes our practices regarding data collection, data use. Let's just focus in on data collection. We collect, generate, or receive personal data regarding our visitors, users, and prospects so that we can provide our services. Personal data is typically collected and generated through your interaction with our services. Come on, we just read that. You can collect certain technical data about you when you sign up for our services, and you contact details and password, billing, shipping, and information, fleet data. Our app can be used to create a fleet of drivers or join a fleet that is managed by a separate entity or individual. If you are a fleet user, we will collect details about you, such as your name, email, and unique fleet identifier assigned to you by fleet manager. So if you have a fleet and you're using this, there's something to watch out for. If you submit this is for collision reports. If you submit or otherwise make available to us any recordings concerning traffic incidents, collisions, road conditions, or violations, we may analyze such recordings and produce reports which may be shared with you, your insurer, or other third parties subject to your authorization in accordance with section 5 below. So if you get into an accident, it looks like your insurance company might be able to reach out to Nexar and get that video. This is awful. Good for them, but bad for us. We're not going to go training data. Hold on. Considering our company mission is to contribute to a safer and more effective driving experience, it is of the utmost importance that we continuously develop our vision AI algorithms, which are used to perform object detection and image classification that produce relevant information for our products. A critical requirement for this development process is the need for a small fraction of the images collected by the cameras used by our users. These images serve as training data and are instrumental not only in enhancing existing services, but also in pioneering features designed to improve driving conditions. I would say be careful if you have an XR camera. It looks like they are using your data to train the next generation of self-driving cars. We spent enough time on that. Let's move on with this story. So this is another development in the self-driving car. And very shortly, you're going to start seeing connections between everything we've covered so far and how this is going to play out, especially in Atlanta. So it says Waymo to add Hyundai EVs to Robotaxi fleet under new multi-year deal. Right now, they use Jaguars, which I don't know why they did that. Those cars are expensive, but they seem to be creating a new partnership. So it says Hyundai Motor and Waymo have agreed to a multi-year strategic partnership that includes the self-driving company adding the South Korean automaker's Ioniq 5 electric vehicles to its Robotaxi fleet. Let's look up how much those cost. Ioniq 5. Let's see brand new, because they're likely to buy them brand new. They are likely to get a discount if they buy them in bulk. Or hey, maybe they even cut Hyundai into the some of the profits they make. So they start at $43,000, which isn't bad, but Google still has to invest into the sensors and things that actually go into the car. So that's something that we should think about as well. The company said Friday that Waymo's 6th generation autonomous technology, known as the Waymo driver, will be integrated in a significant volume over multiple years to support the Alphabet-backed company's growing robotaxi business. It comes nearly 2 months after Waymo revealed details about its newest generation 6 self-driving technology, which will be integrated into Geely Z electric vehicles and should be able to handle a wider array of weather conditions without requiring as many costly cameras and sensors on board. So I do think it's interesting that Google will partner with Hyundai specifically for a specific car model, and then also in the background be designing their own car model. So it's very possible that this car model that they're designing might be manufactured through Hyundai, even though it might be like a Waymo car. Let's see what this says. So it says Waymo is developing a roomier robotaxi with less expensive tech. So here we're seeing, right, they're making efforts to lower the costs to make it more effective for them to enter into the autonomous vehicles like space. A lot of the pushback I get, and even as I said earlier, is that, you know, the unit economics of what it would take to be profitable using self-driving cars, it's kind of a mess right now. I think Tesla has the best route forward since they manufacture their products. I think Waymo, because they don't manufacture their products, has a steeper battle into solving this issue, but it looks like they are actively trying to solve this issue. So it says Alphabet-owned Waymo has revealed details about its newest Generation 6 self-driving technology with new hardware and software integrated into the Geely Zeekr electric vehicles. I just want to see what it looks like. So this is it. So I guess this might be a mock-up. I don't know if this is out there in the wild yet, but it looks like they are partnering with someone. Let's assume it's going to be Hyundai that's going to make these that are specifically made for self-driving purposes. And when you have cars made for self-driving purposes, the same way the Robotaxi, there's going to be certain components you don't have to have in your car, which will make it cheaper. So they are actively trying to make it cheaper to introduce cars into the self-driving market. And so there's not much actual data about the car itself. So let's go back over to where we were before. Waymo, which boasts around 700 vehicles in its fleet today. Wait, hold on. They have 700 vehicles, and those 700 vehicles are averaging 150,000 rides per week. That's kind of insane. So 150,000 per week divided by 700. So 150,000 rides per week divided by 700 Waymos is approximately 214 rides per week. So on average, each car that Waymo has is doing 214 rides per week. I can do that, but that's a long week. That's me driving every day, 10 plus hours at minimum. That's a lot. I guess cars don't really need to sleep. I guess they have to charge, they have to get clean, but they can have significantly more uptime than humans can. But this is crazy. This is actually scary. So if Waymo brings one car to my market, that's 215 rides that could, in theory, go towards them. Oof, it's crazy. I'm a little shocked on that one. The Ioniq 5's EV will be produced at Hyundai's upcoming Meta Plant America in Georgia, and then equipped with Waymo's self-driving technologies. You see, don't pass over this. Earlier, we talked about how Waymo is planning to launch in Atlanta next, and now we see news that Hyundai wants to develop a new plant in Georgia. They're coming for our coast. They're coming for my coast, I guess, the East Coast. This partnership, very strategic. They're making a new plant. It's going to be in Georgia, and they've already announced that in 2025, Waymos will be coming. We already saw the Atlanta airport made changes to where Uber and Lyft drivers pick passengers up. I think they're planning for this too. Hyundai considering hybrid vehicle production at 7.6 billion Georgia EV plant. It's crazy. It says initial on-road testing with Waymo-enabled Ioniq 5s will begin in late 2025. They're expected to become available to Waymo One robotaxi riders in the years to follow, the company said. So we have Lyft coming to Atlanta with their new partnerships, and we have Waymo coming to Atlanta with their new partnership and their new car, while also working on a cheaper car in the background. The companies declined to disclose financial terms of the partnership, but confirmed Waymo will purchase and own their vehicles. I wish there was some more transparency around this, so that obviously we can dissect them and go into them. But I do like that they confirm they're going to purchase and own their vehicles. Hey Buddha, what's up? You're finally streaming again? Yes, I'm streaming again, and I will be live streaming weekly, most weeks on Thursdays moving forward. And I appreciate you coming here, man. Lynn says, thanks, Tristan. Thank you for being here. I appreciate you guys. All right, I don't think we need to go too much deeper into that. So let's see what's next. We kind of touched on it a little bit. It's just another article. Hyundai has begun producing electric SUVs at its 7.6 billion plant in Georgia. Whoa, that was fast. So they went from thinking about building it to actually building it. I didn't actually realize that. So dang, so they actually got it up and running. Because even the last article I pulled up, it said that they were reconsidering it. It says Hyundai has begun producing SUVs in Georgia less than 2 years after breaking ground on its sprawling 7.6 billion manufacturing plant of West Savannah. So that's not far from me. I live 2 hours from Savannah. If it's west of Savannah, that means it's probably close to Georgia Southern. It's probably 3 hours from me. Hyundai's factory in Georgia held an employee-focused celebration as its first EV for commercial sale rolled off the assembly line. First EV for commercial sale. They're selling to Google. Like they're making the cars that they're going to test in Atlanta, in Georgia. After validating its production process to ensure its vehicles meet Hyundai Motors Group's high quality standards, they have started initial production of customer vehicles ahead of schedule. So they're also ahead of schedule, which is kind of wild. Usually things are late. So that's definitely something we as drivers should be watching, especially if you're on the East Coast, especially if you're in Atlanta. This is going to have an impact. And like, I don't understand why people think it won't impact them. Like, again, we don't have to be replaced 100%. There can be a 20%, like if an area has 80% drivers and 20% self-driving cars, that's still going to decrease how much money we're able to earn, comparatively speaking. Like, the doom and gloom scenario isn't self-driving cars are taking all of the rides. The doom and gloom scenario is self-driving cars are taking enough of the rides to make it not profitable for human drivers. That's where the problem is. And the thing about Google is that even if their current cars are losing money, they make so much money with their other businesses that they can subsidize it. And I also have a feeling that, Google essentially is an advertising company. I have a very strong feeling that Google's going to figure out a way to serve ads in the car. Similar to the Octopus tablets. They pay us a very small percentage of the ads while they make their money on the ads. They make so much money, or enough money, that they're able to send us pretty high quality tablets for free because they expect to make their money back with the ads. If Google has their own cars and they're able to sell ads in those cars, or they don't even have to sell ads to the people in the cars, they can sell the data that they generate from these self-driving cars to other companies. They do that with their ads as well. They sell user data. That's what they're in the business of. They can subsidize the cost of their rideshare business plan with that money. It doesn't their entire business plan is not going to be how much is a passenger going to pay me. That's not going to be the totality of where they make their money. That's going to be part of it. And that's something that we need to be aware of, especially when we're having these conversations about, is this financially feasible for these companies? And what we're starting to see is that there are different companies coming up with different ways to make money. And some of them aren't figuring it out. Cruise just announced that they're done. They're pivoting from rideshare to creating vehicles that people want to buy. They're taking the Tesla approach. Tesla has their own approach. But we need to be aware of what are these different angles. And we can't group all of these companies under like one umbrella in terms of how they're going to go about launching their rideshare platforms. So it says Waymo's 6th generation Robotaxi is cheaper. How cheap can they go? So this is more about the Zeus, I think it's called. No, the Zeekr. It's such a weird name. The Zeekr. Weird. It says Waymo, the Google-created robotaxi company, has revealed more details on their 6th generation vehicle based on a body by China-based Geely Zeekr and a new generation of custom sensors and software. We better hope those sanctions that Trump wants to put on China causes this to become expensive and Google not want to do that. There's the reason they're probably working with China is probably because it's cheaper. And we better hope those 25% tariffs come in strong, very strong. It says the minivan shaped version of this car has been recently seen driving in San Francisco and other areas in preparation for taxi services. I did not know that. So sometimes I pull up these articles. I don't read through them because I want you guys to have my actual reaction to some of this stuff. and I was not aware. I thought this was just a render. I literally earlier said that this doesn't look real. I suspect that's, you know what? I need to see it. Let's go to YouTube. Hustling Buddha says they can't go on highways. You're not, so I want to disprove you right now. What is it? Phoenix highway. They might not be able to go on highways in LA or California right now, but they can go on highways right now in Phoenix. From surface streets to freeways, safely expanding. You know, that's not. This is going to be a biased article from Waymo. I want to see. Give me a video. Video shows Waymo swerving in Phoenix. Hold on. Driverless cars will soon be on Phoenix freeways. I want one that says it was actually on a freeway. Let's set of videos. Let's see if we find a news article on it. This is from May 25. It says they're testing on larger roads. March, while they're avoiding freeways. Here we go. This is older than that. Let's maybe I'm wrong. Do Waymos go on freeways? All right, so it says yes, Waymo self-driving cars can and do go on freeways. Waymo began testing fully autonomous vehicles without human drivers on freeways in Phoenix in early 24. They are also testing driverless cars on freeways in San Francisco. Waymo's approach is to gradually expand their services. They're given too much fluff. Can I take a paid ride on a Waymo that will go on freeways? If it's not a paid option and they're still testing it, I'm gonna concede and say I think that in order for me to be right, they would have to be I would have to be able to pull up the app, pay, get into the car, and see it go on our freeway in order to consider myself as correct. I know for sure in LA and California, it's not like that yet. Nah, Hyundai Santa Fe EV for me, I don't think EVs are great for rideshare. I'm a hybrid man. It says, yes, you can take a paid ride on a Waymo that will go on freeways. Waymo offers paid rides in Phoenix and San Francisco, and their service includes freeways. So I think Buddha's in LA. I wasn't aware that San Francisco does freeways. Let's see if I can, so when I use AI, I use it to like hunt down information, but you should always like confirm. So San Fran, Waymo, freeways. So this is from an article. It says, in a significant move, Waymo announced it would begin testing fully AVs on San Francisco freeways without a human driver. And this is from October 17, so this is recent. The testing is part of its larger mission to create a widespread autonomous ride-hailing vehicle. Autonomous driving is no longer just a futuristic concept, it's rapidly becoming a reality. So it looks like in San Francisco, it's not on freeways. Okay, so even if it's not currently on freeways, like publicly, it's still being tested. It's still something we should worry about. Hustling Buddha says, Uber does 3 to 4 billion trips. They won't make 7 million Waymos, bro. So I'm glad you're here because I'm glad that we can have a conversation. And I want to make sure I'm clear with my thoughts on this. You're comparing what Uber does worldwide to what Waymo is doing in 3 cities. When I talk to drivers, right, I want them to be aware of what's happening or what could happen in their city. And it's strange because you're someone who lives in LA. I talk to you and I know that you also would agree with me when I say that the pricing continues to decrease. Not the pricing, but the pay for drivers continues to decrease in LA. And so I would ask is, do you think that self-driving cars in LA have had a zero impact on what you make? You don't think that the 150 rides that they're taking per week in just those 3 markets is having zero impact on surges, on the pricing? We can't compare what Uber's doing worldwide to what Waymo is doing in 3 cities because my income isn't based on worldwide. My income, your income, other drivers' income is based on what's happening in that city. So I think it's important for people to be aware of where these are coming. If you're in Atlanta, even if we should hope that self-driving cars have a zero impact on a market when they're introduced to it. But because this is money we're talking about, this is livelihood we're speaking about, this is like your ability to live. You should have a plan. Of course, my plan is, pay off your debt, put yourself in a position not to need it. But I feel like it's a disservice to I don't see the point in comparing worldwide rides because we're not talking it's city based. If you're gonna tell me that there's 3 billion trips happening in LA and Waymo's only doing 100,000 of those trips, I wouldn't be worried. That's not the argument though. The argument is you're comparing city to worldwide, and not just America. Uber is literally worldwide. So I don't think that's an apples to apples comparison. And then on top of that, it takes so long to pivot. When you wake up one day and you decide, I want to do something else. I want to go back to school. I want to get a certification. I want to get a different type of job. I want to go learn something new. It can take years, 2 years, 3 years to go and get those credentials, to put yourself in a place where you don't need what you were doing to make money. And that's what I'm trying to hedge against. That's what I'm trying to convince people to hedge against. So, I mean, how about this? How about you tell me how many rides they need to be doing worldwide before you're worried, before you would want to pivot, before you'd want to change what you're trying to do. Okay, so they're finally talking about money here. And they said we've recently seen announcements of a $28,000 cost for Baidu's new Robotaxi, and rumors that Tesla's delayed Robotaxi concept car was derived from now canceled efforts to make a $25,000 low-end consumer electric car. So they're working on it. It is expensive. They started off with a really expensive car, the Jaguar, and they partnered with Hyundai, which we saw is $45,000 for a brand new car, not including the sensors. They'll probably get discounts on it if they're buying in bulk. But we're seeing where this Chinese company, $28,000 for their Robotaxi. We're seeing Tesla, $25,000 for low end, and it's as the technology becomes cheaper, it becomes more problematic. Like if any of you out there bought a brand new Tesla, you've paid more than this for that. And they're making self-driving cars cheaper than that. You can probably make like 2 to 3 self-driving cars for the one Tesla you bought at full price, depending on which model you got, of course. So like don't think they're not working on it. It might be expensive today, and I would argue that today is the worst the technology will ever be. Technology will only get better, and the technology will only get cheaper, because that's what happens. That's how it works. All right, so how is all of this news affecting Uber and Lyft as far as their stock prices are concerned? So it says Uber and Lyft's stock price plunge as Google Waymo brings driverless taxis to Miami. We just covered that they're coming to Atlanta, and it looks like they're not coming to Miami. And I know Miami specifically, guys. I think Miami is one of the worst markets to be a rideshare driver in. Maybe unless you're doing like Black services and you're using it to like recruit your own driver base the legal way. I think that for the regular Miami driver, it's super oversaturated. And I think a lot of drivers in Miami would agree with me. But then some of those same drivers in Miami will turn around and say they're not worried about self-driving cars. It's wild. Is wild. For the pure analytics that we did earlier, that the average Waymo is taking 215 rides per week. Just that one car. You put 1,000 of them in Miami. That's a lot of rides. That is a lot of rides. Google said it's bringing its Waymo self-driving taxis to Miami. News that sent shares of Uber Technologies and Lyft sharply lower as investors weighed the risk of their services. And Thursday, a blog post. Oh, you guys can't even see. My bad. In Thursday, a blog post, Waymo announced that it would. Trying to zoom in a little more. Here we go. In Thursday blog post, Waymo announced that it would expand its driverless ride-hailing services to Miami. Waymo has previously tested vehicles in Miami, a city that's provided challenging rainy conditions for its driverless vehicles, the company said. I remember we spoke a little bit about this on Twitter, and someone pointed out they want to see how the Waymo would handle in that rainy condition, and we'll see. They're not perfect. I don't want to make them seem like they are perfect, but right now they are the worst that they will ever be. They're only going to get better. A subsidiary of Google's parent company, Alphabet, Waymo has brought its self-driving ride-hailing services to Phoenix, Los Angeles, San Francisco, and Austin. I missed that one too. So they're bringing it to Atlanta and they're bringing it to Austin. The company said it will begin training its all-electric Jaguar Pace on Miami streets in early 2025 and plans to offer the service to riders in 2026. I have a bet with Lynn that there will be a self-driving car provider that operates in 2025 east of the Mississippi. And in order for me to win, they would need to hurry up. But I don't want them to hurry up. So this is a bet I want to lose, but this is something we should all be prepared for. We have a year to, if you live in Miami or if you live in Austin, you have a year to figure out how you want to approach this situation. The company also announced its partnership with African fintech provider Move to oversee expansion into Miami. Move will also take over Waymo's fleet management operations in Phoenix. So this, I'm not a fan of this. If we are going to become self-driving cars, like a society that's based off of that, I don't want that. But if that's what's to happen, I would like these companies to incorporate rideshare drivers, give rideshare drivers the chance to build up and manage their own fleet as well. Why are we outsourcing fleet management to some company in Africa? I'm pretty sure there are people who have way more knowledge, 1, about America, way more knowledge about 2, Miami, way more knowledge about 3, rideshare than some African company. Like, this doesn't make sense to me. And I wish this wasn't the route that they were taking. Shares of Uber and Lyft both shed about 10% on Thursday as investors weighed the threat that Waymo's expansion posed to the ride-sharing business. Uber is partnering with Waymo in Austin and Atlanta to offer driverless car rides in those cities. So if you're not familiar, I don't know how it is in California, but I know for sure in Phoenix, when someone pulls up the Uber app, they have the option of picking a Waymo or picking a self-driving car. So I'm going to show you, I talked about the percentage a little bit earlier. but let's look it up now. What percentage of passengers are picking Waymo in the Uber app? I think there was a study done on this. I think it was like 50% Waymo Uber. Here it is. So this is from October 10th, 2024. It says half of Uber's riders say no self-driving cars, highlighting trust issues. So to me, right, this title can literally swing any way. They're saying half of the people don't want to do self-driving cars. Well, on the other hand, half of the people want to take self-driving cars. And I assume unless something crazy happens, this ratio will only skew. It says Uber reports that half its riders, and this is from Uber. So take that with what you want. I've personally read things from Uber that are intentionally misleading, and where else am I going to get any information from? So take this with a grain of salt if you want. Or consider it if you want. It's up to you. Uber reports that half its riders in areas where it offers autonomous rides say no thank you to the offer. It highlights trust issues with self-driving technologies. Uber was an early player in self-driving vehicles. It makes sense that the technology stands to disrupt its business more than any other. However, its own effort didn't go well. This is about the woman who killed the pedestrian on the bike years ago. Now Uber works with other companies like Waymo to deploy autonomous vehicles into its fleet into some markets. A new interview with Bloomberg, Uber Derek Khosrowshahi says that only about half the riders agree to be driven. The most important factor is, can we make this technology safe? Can we build trust for riders? For example, in markets where we offer autonomous, half of our riders say no thank you. Like, it's so wild how this is being phrased. Like, oh man, only half of the people in this entire market are saying yes or no to self-driving cars. That's bigger than I thought it would be. If you live in a city, no self-driving cars, Uber comes, well, Waymo comes, and now 50% of the people that would have gotten into your car are now saying that they want to get into a self-driving car. Is that not a big drop in business? Am I insane here? Am I insane for thinking that like that's nothing? I can shrug that off and keep making the same amount of money I was making before they came to my city? Like I feel like I'm crazy. I feel like having this stance is like the absurd stance to take. Tristan, self-driving cars, they're not going to have an effect on my income. That's never going to happen. I feel like, I don't know. I feel crazy. I don't know how else to explain it. I feel gaslit. Maybe it's because I'm doing my best to research this stuff. I'm doing my best to pay attention. And so if I talk to someone who's not aware of this information, they don't have the information I have, and therefore they're not going to agree with me. And maybe that's it. You know what? I'm going to have to, in real time, in 4K, you guys have watched me figure out why I feel like I'm crazy. So yeah, I'm going to go with that. I don't like thinking that. It makes me feel like an elitist. Like, oh, Tristan, you think you're so smart. I don't think I'm smart. But I do understand and accept that people are busy. Not everyone is researching as much as I research certain things. And I like knowing these things. So I don't think that makes me smarter than someone else. But it's within my interests. And so maybe I'm a little more informed on some of these things than some people are. I don't know. You guys tell me what you think it is, because it's driving me insane. It's driving me insane that I can read these things and people are like not worried, not concerned. And I'm not gonna say tomorrow is a concern unless you're in Miami or Austin. What are you guys saying? Antonio says, I think they will replace the immigrants with Robotaxi, not higher pay. I don't really understand what you mean. So like, I understand what you're saying. I don't understand what you mean. If you want to clarify a little bit, I don't think robotaxis are discriminating against immigrants or not. You know, they're not going to know. So let me take a step back. I think that Uber will prioritize its good drivers over its bad drivers when competition increases. And we've already seen this. We've seen Uber and Lyft have their priority mode, where if you have certain stats over a certain amount, you're more likely to make a little more money or get better rides. So I understand that. Now, if I want to take that version and apply it to your argument, here's how I'm reading your comment now. I think they will replace bad drivers with Robotaxi, not better drivers. Then I would agree with you. I don't think there's a way for the system to identify someone as an immigrant or a legal immigrant and determine that instead of me giving this right to that illegal immigrant who shouldn't be on the platform, but figured out a way to be on the platform without me knowing over the self-driving car. So let me know. Maybe I misinterpreted your comment. Feel free to clarify it, but I don't think that is possible. But I agree with the overarching narrative that better drivers will last longer. I'm using better wrong here. And I got to make sure I'm not doing that. Just because you have bad stats doesn't mean you're a bad driver. Unless we're talking about like the ratings. If you have a bad acceptance rate, I gotta stop saying bad. If you have what Uber believes is a bad acceptance rate, I believe they will deprioritize you compared to someone who has a good acceptance rate. But I want to be clear, just because you have a good acceptance rate doesn't mean you're a good driver. And just because you have a bad acceptance rate doesn't mean you're a bad driver. I want to be super clear about that. It's all about what the companies want from us versus what we need for ourselves. Some markets, cherry picking is the way to go. Even my average acceptance rate has dropped. I used to be like in the 90s. Now I hover in the 80s. It's important for me to stay high with Lyft because I need it for some of the tools that they provide. With Uber, I really just don't care. So yeah. Let me know if I've accurately thought about your question or if I misrepresented it. I don't want to misrepresent anyone's point. 50%, man. That's half. That's not nothing, man. All right, so we're done with this one, I think. We've done this one as well. Yeah, we've done this one. So I haven't checked this one out. What is this? What are these ads, bro? This is pretty much just another analysis of the rideshare stuff. We're gonna go ahead and not read this one. So we're gonna move on. We're done with rideshare, not rideshare. We're done with self-driving cars, and we're gonna move on to. We're gonna talk more about humans, right? About some of the human struggles that we have and some labor issues, some markets that we need to be paying attention to. So the first one I want to highlight is this one. So ex-rideshare driver is suing Uber, Lyft, and the city of Chicago for violating workers' rights. I think this is going to be a very important case to follow. One of the things that scare me the most is one day you can be fine doing your thing on the platform, and the next day you can't log in because you're being accused of something you didn't do. Right? And this has happened to me a few times. Right? And I'll show it to you. But let's go through her story first because it's ain't about me. Caressa Corin speaks to the media outside. That's just the description. It's not the start. Sorry. Rideshare drivers rallied at Chicago City Hall on Wednesday in support of former Uber and Lyft driver Caressa Corin. In April, I was wrongly terminated for something I did, Corin said. Corin is suing Uber, Lyft, and the city of Chicago after she was deactivated from the rideshare apps for allegedly spitting on a passenger, which she said is not true. So even though she was deactivated in April, this is recent. This isn't old news. So this picture was taken November 20th. It's not that long ago. That's assault, she said. I've never assaulted anyone ever, so it was crazy. My life being turned around, and they wouldn't even really hear me out. Corin said she was deactivated without proper investigation or due process with the city of Chicago's rules enabling the deactivation and depriving her of the ability to earn a living. So this is crazy. And I've seen something happen just last week with someone in my city where one of the government bodies within my city reached out to Lyft and told her, hey, she can't drive on Lyft anymore, even though that government body did not reach out to her. So she doesn't even know what she did. She doesn't know what was wrong. She has no idea. And just like that, she's off the platform. In fact, let me show it to you guys. I don't know how long ago I posted this. Let me look for it. All right, so here it is. This is a screenshot she shared with the Facebook group. It says, due to compliance regulations in your region, you have been deactivated on the Lyft platform as per the request of the local regulator. Until we hear from your regulator, your driver account will remain deactivated, which is crazy. Maybe she actually did something that deserves this, but we dug a little deeper and she says it must be, someone responds saying it must be ORS, which I think is the government body for this. They need to target the part-timers driving with nothing on their windshields and those with bent up dented hoopties. This is an assumption. He is making an assumption as to why. And she says she has a 2024, so it's not a hoopty. And she's also said that she hasn't driven with Lyft for a while. So I'm not sure what's going on. But again, this is the same exact market I live in. Imagine a brand new car and now she can't drive on Lyft. That's crazy. That's one of my fears right there. Not I wouldn't have a new car, but just this is the mechanism I'm using to pay off my debt. If I can't drive anymore, that's okay. I used to be a district manager. I can become a store manager at pretty much any store and I will be okay. How I live my life will change, but I can make enough money to survive because I've been paying off my debt. I don't have car payments. My wife's car is paid off. We essentially need less than like bare bones $2,000 and we can survive. And that's with food and all of that. The mortgage is like less than $1,000. We average about 3,000 because we're not just trying to survive. We're chilling. So I know I would be okay. But someone who has a brand new car, with the average car payment being $700 for a new car, not making that up. Like I researched this very, very recently. What is the average car payment? The average monthly car payment for a new vehicle in 2024 is $737. I'm not making that up. It's $520 if you buy a used car. If you're kicked off the platform and you have a $700 car payment that's not even including insurance, it's bad. I wouldn't want anyone to be in that position. It's bad. Back to the story. So it says, I just now found employment last month. So that picture was taken in November. We assume this article is from November. She has been kicked off both platforms since April, and she's just finding employment in Chicago, an expensive city. So I just now found employment last month, almost lost my house. Corin said, I'm still to this day without a car, in a hole, and trying to find a way to dig myself out and basically rebuild my life. So making some assumptions here. She either got her car repoed, hopefully maybe she sold it because that's the better way to do it, but she probably got it repoed, or she was renting. But let's see if it gets clarified. It says her lawsuit challenges the Chicago ordinance that requires platforms to report driver deactivations to other companies. This is insane. Corin said that this leads to arbitrary enforcement and denies drivers the opportunity to defend themselves, which is what she's demanding now. I'm getting upset. I'm always able to compartmentalize things, and I can understand how this law was created. I assume Uber and Lyft actually don't like this law because it lowers their driver base. I assume someone who is very pro-consumer, I thought this was a good idea, and it's not inherently a bad idea. I don't. It's not unreasonable. You do something. There is a government entity that is able to communicate with people you work with, as far as it goes with public transportation, and you get kicked off the platform. That's if you're accused of something heinous, you actually did something that was really bad, you violated a person. I'm talking about touching them. I'm trying not to say the S word here or the R word here, but if you did something that's legitimately bad, you should be kicked off all the platforms for that. However, this should either be temporary until you get your due process, until there's some proof or whatever, or not even or. That's kind of it. I understand the need for a temporary suspension, but there needs to be some immediate digging and research into what happened. And without that, it feels unfair. So even going back to the case of the driver who lives where I live, to this day, she doesn't know why. When I first got deactivated on Lyft, I didn't even know why. And if you're innocent, if you didn't do something and someone is just accusing you of doing something, you're not going to know why. You're not going to know which rider accused you of whatever. You just won't. And it's unfair to be deactivated based off of that. But we have seen Uber and Lyft take steps to try and combat that. But this seems that, that's something that's only been recent. The news of Uber and Lyft changing how they combat deactivations, I'm not even going to give them credit for it. The only reason they have to do that is because in New York, Letitia James is forcing them to do it. So they just applied that policy nationwide. So they don't even get credit for implementing this because they are forced to implement this. And this is how it should be in the beginning. But even with that being said, she was deactivated before that it came into effect. And it's I don't know. I guess we're going to find out. We'll read some more. I want to see what she has done to this point. It says to be reinstated, possibly to be reimbursed on my livelihood. She said, everything has changed for me now. That's it. That's crazy. I need more. Maybe I should try to reach out to her. Yes, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to see if I can reach out to her. Maybe I can interview her for you guys. That would be dope. That would be cool. That would be cool. I did pull up the actual, I don't even know what you would call this. Okay, I guess this is an advocacy group. They kind of put together a PDF, which I thought was cool. It says The Road to Nowhere, How Uber and Lyft's deactivation policies leave Chicago drivers stranded. We're not going to read the whole thing. I'm going to see if I can quickly, we'll figure out the meat of it. Let me zoom in some more here. It's not going to do well. That's fine. It says every year without notice or meaningful recourse through what Uber and Lyft call deactivation, essentially automated terminations or suspensions, licensed rideshare corporations like Uber and Lyft are only required to report a narrow segment of deactivations to the city of Chicago that fall under 10 broad public safety categories. In 2022 alone, rideshare corporations including Uber and Lyft reported nearly 4,000 permanent deactivations to the city, which only represents a fraction of the total deactivations. Driver deactivations were up almost 87% from 2021, while the average number of active drivers was only up about 31%. So what they're saying is they are deactivating more drivers than they could put on the platform. For the drivers out there that aren't getting deactivated, it's good for you. But because of how arbitrarily you can get activated, and because the rate of deactivations has increased so much, you should be worried too. This could affect you. The corporations reported that they did not reactivate a single driver from the list of nearly 4,000 reported to the city. That is wild. So out of all the people who have been reported, if any percentage of them were falsely reported, none of them have been reactivated. 0 of them have been reactivated, according to this PDF. Since 2020, the corporations have reported nearly 10,000 deactivations. And remember, this is the crazy part. You get deactivated on Lyft, they talk to the government, and the government then tells Uber they have to deactivate you. Not just Uber, probably all of the rideshare companies in that city. It says deactivation is a growing crisis for drivers in Chicago, and these numbers are only a small part of the story. In this brief, we describe the devastating impact of the deactivation crisis on working families, outline how the current deactivation process fuels a safety crisis and relies on the assumption that drivers, who are majority people of color and immigrants, are dangerous, and highlight solutions developed by rideshare drivers. It's absolutely wild. I'm not going to focus on the racial component of this. I think that's lame. Lame in the sense that I think that if you want to make a good argument, the argument can be made without race even being brought into this conversation. So I'm not going to focus on that part of it. So it says the data suggests Uber and Lyft often deactivate and lock drivers out of the platform based on their automated verification processes. Uber and Lyft require drivers to submit a photo to access their accounts and use facial recognition software to confirm the person signing in is authorized to drive on the platforms. In 2022, 1,853 deactivations, or almost 47% of public safety deactivations, were listed under unauthorized TNP driver account sharing. Okay, if that system is accurate, that's cool. If that system can make even one mistake and that one person does not have a process for getting their account back, problematic for me. So it says the failures of Uber and Lyft deactivation appeals process. In most cities, drivers can only appeal their deactivations directly to Uber and Lyft. Drivers report that process is often drawn out, I agree, opaque, I agree, and fully mediated by the app, leaving little hope of success. Drivers often do not know why they were deactivated. Even when they do, some drivers report that when they offer to provide evidence to Uber and Lyft in response to allegations, the corporations largely ignore them. And in some cases, deactivations are permanent, and corporations do not give drivers a substantive opportunity to challenge them. So that was true. They've been making changes to this, but apparently Chicago's not enough. That government body that they have, that's the intermediary here, seems like it's the main problem. In Uber's recent civil rights audit, the corporation claims that a human is always involved in the review process for deactivations. Even if this is true, drivers do not have access to the decision maker, and corporations do not allow drivers to appeal them in real time. Problematic. Often drivers never get to speak directly to a human at any point in the process. Furthermore, corporations do not offer drivers a fair process for appealing deactivations, as the company controls the process without oversight. It needs to be improved, it needs to be fixed. So I like whoever put this little PDF together. Definitely want to save this to my computer. So Antonio says, yes, I'm saying when Trump gets into office, Miami is a perfect example. I do think Trump deporting people will have a positive impact on the demand for rideshare. You know what? No. Let me back that up. Because someone introduced a new perspective to me recently that kind of changed my mind on the whole Trump thing. So for those of you who don't know, the last video I made on the channel was actually breaking down how I think Trump will affect the presidency. I told you guys I'd make that video regardless of who won. If Harris won, I was gonna make the same video. If Trump won, make the same video. And what I did with this video is I focused on the policies. I'll say I'm not a fan of Trump. I don't like his personality, very shady. Which politician isn't shady, but there's levels to it. But I focused on what is he saying and what it would look like if what he said is true. So if Trump is saying they want to deport people, my focus wasn't to talk about if this is a good or bad thing from a racial perspective or nationality perspective. My perspective was, how will this affect rideshare drivers? Is this a good thing or is this a bad thing? And in that video, I said that it would largely be a good thing for rideshare drivers, but I'm not sure anymore. Depending on your market, yes, you might have some drivers that are on the platforms illegally, which is a safety concern, I'll admit. And they're also messing with the supply and demand. They're taking riders that people who are here legally should be taking. So I acknowledge that. But then someone made a very good point. And they said that disproportionately, there are going to be more illegals who are taking rides, as in they're paying for Uber and Lyft to go places, than there are on the platform using it. So yes, if we were to round up all the illegal immigrants who are here illegally and ship them all away, the pool of customers would shrink. So yes, the pool of illegal immigrants who are driving on the platforms would shrink, but that would be a smaller pool than the amount of people who use those platforms to get to school, to get to work, to do what they do. And if you're okay with that, fine, whatever. I'm not here to like argue on that basis. But if Miami has a bunch of illegal immigrants that are causing these surges, that are going places, that are your passengers, you'll be losing them too. And if that's what you want, that's fine. But you gotta factor that in. That here's what I'll say: when it comes to government, whether it's Democrats or whether it's Republicans, they make decisions that they think is the best decision, and sometimes they don't think enough about the ramifications of those decisions. And we're going to see that in some of the articles we're going to focus on later, where we know that Minneapolis, they just enacted a minimum wage for drivers, but we're learning that even though it looks good on paper, it's not resulting in what they thought it would. So you can enact well-meaning legislation, or what you think is well-meaning legislation, and it still have negative effects. And of course, I want whoever is the president to be successful. I want my life to not be significantly negatively impacted by what they do. But it's not always surface level. What you think will happen is not always what just happens on the surface. So think about that. So with me saying that, I'm curious now. Are you concerned? Not concerned is not the right word. Do you agree or disagree that the pool of customers that you would have in Miami would shrink if illegal immigrants were deported? And do you think that that pool is bigger than the amount of illegal immigrants doing Uber and Lyft? Okay, so you let me know what you think about that. Lynn says, I'll come to Charleston and drive you around if that happens. Thanks. Man, that's funny. Okay. Let's get back to the next story. I'm gonna put it in my to-do list to reach out to that lady. I don't want to forget. So hold on, give me a second, guys. Reach out to lady in Chicago. Let's do it at 9 p.m. I'm sure the stream will be over by then. So that's there. Okay, so we touched about this a little bit. This is from November 11th, 2023 or 2024. We're not going through this. I thought this was a recent story. I'm pretty sure there is a recent story though. Uber revamping a deactivation process. I want to give you guys old news. We can go over here, more search tools, and we'll sort by pass here. I don't want to read something directly from Uber. All right, we're going to read it from Uber just because I want to save on time here. So this is from Uber's newsroom. It says, this is from September 17th, 2024. Only on Uber, helping to make driving and delivering safer, fairer, and easier. I remember going through this video. I reacted to this video live. I want to focus on the part about deactivations. It says, over the years, we've made hundreds of improvements to the app and to keep drivers safe. Last November, we announced comprehensive changes to our deactivation policies to give drivers and couriers a louder voice in the process. Today, we announced some additional features. They've been working on it, but so they announced something last year, and then this lady gets deactivated, and now they're announcing more features. So they're making progress in the correct direction, but I really want to see something happen for this lady. So encouraging better behavior from riders, restaurants, and customers. We're stepping up our efforts to encourage better behavior from riders. If a driver reports a rider for rude or inappropriate behavior, we'll soon send the rider a warning. This isn't going to help her. We'll also be sharing important information with delivery customers, restaurants. That's not going to help her. Choosing to block riders. That's not going to help her. Getting alerts and sharing info when your account is at risk. This might have helped her. So this is new. This happened after she was deactivated. It says, we want to ensure that drivers and couriers are confident that their side of the story is being heard, particularly before a potential deactivation decision. Coming soon, drivers and couriers will be able to share additional information as soon as they see a safety report from a rider and before it affects their account. This might have helped her. So if what she says is true, this might have helped her. And what I hope she had a dash cam. If you're driving Uber and Lyft and you do not have a dash cam, that is the most important thing for you to purchase. Like next, get the cheapest one that you can get. If it's not great, you upgrade later, but you need to have a dash cam. And at minimum, and even though I have a dash cam, I still do this. I literally record my phone screen the entire time. Depending on the kind of phone you have, it might not be able to do it. You want to make sure you have enough space on your phone. But I have my dash cam and I record my phone screen the entire time. And I make sure that the phone screen recording is also recording the audio of like what's happening in the car. Now, I don't record it for safety reasons. I record it for content reasons. Like if I want to make a video, show them my strategy, I can just pull up the recording and take B-roll from it. But it also doubles as safety. If a passenger is claiming that I spit on them and I don't have a dash cam, so dash cam messed up or she didn't have a dash cam, they're gonna, well, with Lyft, in my experience, so I'll tell you about my experience. I was accused of locking a passenger in my car and being suggestive with them, like saying things that are like things you shouldn't say, inappropriate things. And what they did is, so that I don't know who the person is, because I dropped this person off, I know where they live. They said, here are 4 rides that I want you to send to me, because I had a dash cam. So I sent them the 4 rides, and then they determined that I didn't do anything. So if that's what they would do with her, and she has her phone like screen recorded, and she has the audio recorded, you would think somewhere along the lines, if you spit on someone, you would hear like a verbal fight at minimum between the two. The video would obviously prove whether you did or didn't do it, but even having the screen recording is better than not having it. I think Uber now lets you record while driving, but the problem with that is they only hold on to the data for a certain amount of time. People can report you whenever they want, which is also problematic. So nice to see Uber is like doing something about it, but too late. This lady didn't get help. So the next one, we're moving off of the Chicago story, and we are going to talk about the minimum wage for Uber and Lyft drivers take effect and some other labor news. So this is already in effect. This was written on November 29th. I believe the Uber and Lyft minimum pay increase happened December 1st. So we're going to quickly read the overview, and then we're going to see what drivers are saying about it. A new minimum wage for Uber and Lyft drivers in Minnesota takes effect on Sunday, the result of a hard-fought 2-year campaign to raise driver wages, insurance coverage, and protections from unfair discipline. When I first started my podcast about a year ago, I did so many stories on this, and I got beaten up by you guys because people think that because I think something is going to happen, that I want it to happen. And I believed, based off of the research I did, looking into this, looking into the average pay, looking into how they were trying to implement this, I said this would not be great. I said that, I maintained that, I got beat up for that position, and we are going to find out how it's going because it's live. It has happened. Drivers for transportation network companies will earn at least $1.28 per mile and 31 cents per minute on average for time spent driving passengers. Individual trips may pay less than the minimum rate, but if drivers don't earn the minimum rate on average over 2 weeks, ride-hail companies must pay the difference. This is where people are having the biggest issue. This is an example of you went out, you fought for something, you thought it was gonna be great for you, but you did not think about the negative ramifications of how it could potentially be implemented and how that would affect you. Whether that was a retaliatory move by the government or retaliatory move by Uber or Lyft, these are the things you have to think about when you're trying to enact change. You just have to, right? And if you don't, this is how you get screwed over. With that rate, the typical driver in the Twin Cities can expect to earn at least $34.58 per hour before they pay for gas and other expenses, a 14% increase over 2022 pay, according to the analysis by the Service Employment and International Union. What they have not said here, which I hope they touch in later in this article, this is based off of active time, as it should be. As it should be. I don't think Uber and Lyft drivers should be getting paid when they're not working. Like they're online, there are no rides. It's just the nature of the beast. Like if you want to be independent contracted, that's part of it. If you want to get paid hourly, that's a different game, different set of rules. So I don't think people should be getting paid if they're not driving, because then you could just sit in your car all day declining rides, being online and getting paid for that. That's not okay. I don't think that's okay. You can disagree with me for sure. It says the law entitles drivers to at least $5 per trip, which is great. I think $5 minimum, sweet spot. 80% of any cancellation fee and additional pay if they have a wheelchair accessible vehicle. All of that's great. This is fantastic. I think this should be nationwide minimum. This can be a little lower. Of course, the higher the better. 80% is kind of high, but I do think that the current cancellation fees are ridiculous. They're terrible. Terrible, terrible, terrible. $5 minimum per trip. Excellent. Excellent, man. I think that's fantastic. Customers in the Twin Cities metro area can expect to see about a 25% increase in pricing at first, according to an Uber spokeswoman. That feels evil, and it might very well be evil, but this is one of the things that I expected them to do when I talked about why I disagree with this, right? I noted that due to my loose understanding of supply and demand, if rides are more expensive, you're making more money per ride, but you're getting less rides, you might make less money overall. We saw a little bit of that in Seattle, and that was my expectation here, and we'll see whether I was right or wrong. It says Lauren, a full-time Uber and Lyft driver, said he's worried the higher prices might lead to a decrease in demand, but it's overall optimistic the law will increase pay, especially on longer rides. I just said that. I did not read this article beforehand. You got my real world reaction, and we're on the same boat. He's being optimistic, and that's fine. I don't mind optimism. I do think longer rides are going to pay better. That's fine. But what I suspect is going to happen, because it's over a 2-week time period, he might take rides that pay less than what they're supposed to pay, And then his long rides paid so well that it makes up for the difference. And he would make more money if that rule was applied per ride instead of every 2 weeks. So they're going to be shortchanged here. It's like if it happens to where you're not paid very well for a period of time within those 2 weeks, but then you take a very good ride, it's like $50 per hour. You're subsidizing your own bad rides. Uber and Lyft can math it out to where they don't actually have to pay you anything because they gave you some bad rides and they gave you some good rides. And that's a world of different from applying this rule on a per ride basis. The new law also gives drivers the right to appeal being fired or deactivated on a quick timeline. So that was like introduced nationally for everyone. Expands insurance requirements for companies, which will take effect Jan 1st. I wonder what that entails. I don't know about that one. And requires companies to contract with a non-profit organization to provide culturally competent driver representation services, outreach, and education to the many East African and other immigrant drivers on the platform. This is cool, but that kind of feels like an overreach. Like they want Uber and Lyft to provide a nonprofit organization to train drivers or to give driver that feels a little weird. That feels a little weird. From the American in me says that feels a little weird, but that's going to be good for drivers. Uber and Lyft did not say which nonprofit they've decided to contract with to provide those services. Okay, so that's something we need to watch out for as we move forward with this. The law seems to be written with one organization in mind, the Minnesota Uber and Lyft Drivers Association. They call themselves MOLDA. I'm not a fan. I am not a fan of this group, and there are some things that have been happening within this group, like some infighting. Some people are being accused of like taking money that's not theirs, and they used bad information to come up with what they wanted, and they kind of bullied their way to what's happening now. And I think that they were well-meaning, but they not well understanding. The group was at the forefront of the grassroots campaign for minimum wages for ride-hail drivers, and lucrative contracts with Uber and Lyft promised to be a valuable reward for years of activism. The group's president, Eid Ali, I believe he's the one that's like being accused of like taking money. Don't know how true it is, but let's bring it up. Eid Ali, Molda. Would this be embezzlement? That feels like hold on. Let's do Minnesota. Share. All right, so it says Minnesota Uber and Lyft drivers accuse advocacy organization of fraud in lawsuit. So not embezzlement, fraud. Again, this is just an accusation. Don't know if it's true. We'll see what happens. The organization that led the 2-year-long campaign to win minimum wages and labor protections for Uber and Lyft drivers now faces a lawsuit brought by drivers alleging fraud and deceptive trade practices. The 6 drivers bringing the lawsuit allege Minnesota Uber and Lyft Drivers Association President Eid Ali set up other organizations with similar names to funnel money to himself. Big claim. They also accused Ali of fraud for soliciting membership payments through Molda's website long after Ali changed the bylaws to say the group doesn't have members. The drivers, 4 of whom say they're on the Molda board, and 2 of who say they're dues-paying members, filed the lawsuit on Friday in Hepburn County District Court after trying to unsuccessfully for months to get Ali to share documents with them, including the organization's financial records, bylaws, and meeting minutes. We want this organization back in the hands of drivers. Farlan Badil, a dues-paying member of Molda and plaintiff in the lawsuit of the reformer. Drivers have the right to have an organization that has proper governance. Ali and his attorney, Stephen Cooper, did not respond to calls seeking comment. Badell, who said he paid $100 to join Molda, says he and the other drivers don't have any sense of the organization's finances and were often confused by who was actually in charge of the nonprofit and its finances beside Ali. I think it's fine to charge people to be part of this because people are taking time out of their day that it could be spent driving, fighting for you in the court system, doing meetings and things like that. So I do think dues are fine. I don't know what the structure are. I don't know how like open they're supposed to be with their finances, but it sounds like they are supposed to be, and maybe they're not. So we'll see. Ali serves as the public face and behind-the-scenes negotiator in the effort to make Minnesota one of the first states to enact minimum pay rates for Uber and Lyft drivers, not the first, as well as greater pay transparency, protections against unfair terminations, and insurance that covers being assaulted on the job. So I'll pay attention to that. Let me put that on my notes. I want to look a little deeper into this, see where that lawsuit is. I want to find the actual lawsuit, see what it says. Look into Molda money lawsuit. All right, so we'll look into that. Let's go back. So we're done with this one. I need to sign into my New York Times. Hold on. Here it is. Okay. I don't think this is it actually. Not it. Here it is. Here we go. So this is how drivers, their interpretation of what's been happening. This came out on December 4th. It is the 19th. I don't really think that's enough time to determine if the pay is better or worse, but let's see what they're saying. Rideshare drivers say they're still waiting for a pay bump after new Minnesota laws go into effect. Many say the new law, which averages earnings over a 14-day period, penalizes drivers who take shorter, more lucrative rides. That would be me. I don't understand how, but that would be me. Twin City rideshare drivers spent close to 2 years lobbying first Minneapolis, then the state to establish minimum pay rates for the industry. Those new rates went into effect on December 1st, but some drivers say they have yet to see any difference in their take-home pay. A state bill signed into law in May gave drivers a pay floor of $1.28 a mile and 31 cents per minute. Before that, Uber and Lyft set pay rates based on market conditions. I don't mind a rate card, but this isn't the way to do it. The rideshare giants were so concerned about a Minneapolis ordinance setting an even higher minimum wage that they threatened to leave the state before a last-minute deal in the legislature overruled the Minneapolis rates. Now that the new law is finally in effect, some drivers who pick up rides at the Minneapolis-St. Paul International Airport said the fine print will lead them to make less overall for certain rides. I'm a little biased. I think taking interpretations from airport drivers is the best group of people to take them from. If you make money with the airport, that's fine. I just don't think the airport's the best place to make money. Nothing's different. Nobody said we have a little bit more money now. So is he saying that it's more now? Nothing's different. Nobody said we have a little bit more money now. Nobody said we have a little. Okay. So nothing has changed. No one is saying that this has improved their income. According to him, during the last few days of November, rideshare drivers at the parking lot near the airport were excited about the upcoming change, but that excitement turned into confusion when they didn't see an increase in their daily earnings. That frustration has led drivers like Omot, who has only been driving for 7 months in Minnesota, to consider leaving the industry. According to the Uber website, the minimum compensation for drivers is $5 per ride. I mean, honestly, sometimes I take $3. If I have like a challenge or something like that, I'll do it. Because of that minimum compensation guarantee, the profit is typically better for shorter rides. That leads some drivers to avoid long trips outside the metro, where it can be difficult to pick up rides on the return trip. So everything's making sense so far. It's
going to get better, but nothing's getting better. Every day is the same circle.
Were you expecting come December 1st to start seeing more money on per ride?
That's the whole thing we fight the last more than 2 years. And when we said that December 1st, we was expected to see the higher pay. But right now, I think so maybe it's worse.
To be honest with you, today I pick up someone from here to, it was almost 42 miles. And when I asked, she got charged $122. And I got paid $52.
The new pay rate.
No, I don't feel good really. It's right now.
Why?
Because it's supposed to be this month they told me, say, we're going to be a little bit go up, but we don't get that much. It's 45 miles.
I'm gonna go back.
No, I don't feel.
I'm gonna go back here.
She got charged $122, 2 miles.
42 miles. Let me get my calculator. 42 miles. And they're supposed to be paid, I think it was $1.42 or something like that. I'm gonna put 1.5.
And when I asked, she got charged $122. And I got paid.
I gotta be specific. Okay. I want to make sure I'm doing this right. New mini pay rate for drivers. It's not. I know it's 1.4. I don't remember the mile. 1.28. Oh. All right. So 1.28. He said it was 44 miles.
$52. She got charged $122. And when I asked, was almost 42 miles.
All right. So it's 42 miles. So 1.28 times 42 miles. And that's not including the time.
And when I asked.
So we didn't even include the time. And we're already at $53.76. He doesn't really tell us the time, but it sounds like he was underpaid what he was supposed to be paid for that ride.
She got charged $122. And I got paid $52.
The new pay rate.
No, I don't feel good really. It's right now.
Why?
Because it's supposed to be this month they told me, say, we're going to be a little bit go up, right? But we don't get that much. It's 45 miles. They pay me $35.
We're expecting to get a better pay. And all drivers was expecting to get a better pay. And this bill takes time, almost 2 years. We put time. We do a lot of efforts, The thing is, today, where we ended up, is everybody's get shocked,
That's one of the scary things. I met with the advocacy group here in Charleston, and I told them I'm not sure I'm on board for supporting anything, because my major concern is you can do well-meaning things, you can introduce well-meaning legislation, but the blowbacks can be so severe without knowing. I feel for that driver. He said, we've been doing this for 2 years and the results are not resulting, and I feel it for him. I feel the pain in his voice to fight so hard for something for so long, to be so excited about it when it's done. You think you've won, to realize nothing has changed. And I feel bad. I do. I really do. Back to the article. It says, I have to pay gas and recently almost $700 on winter tires, he said. Some of the frustrated drivers have reached out to Uber and Lyft with questions since the new law went into effect. Uber directed them to a blog post explaining how the new rates are paid. Yikes. Let's see. I want to see what that blog post is. Uber blog post, mini drivers, new rate. Here it is. Minnesota State TNC Driver Compensation Policy. Effective December 1st, 2024, in accordance with Minnesota law, below, please find Uber's Minnesota's TNC Driver Compensation Policy. This policy is also available at the bottom of this page in different languages. I'm not going to reread the things that we know. It says, if applicable, an additional 91 cents per mile for any transportation of a rider by a driver and a qualifying wheelchair accessible vehicle, regardless of whether a wheelchair securement device is used. Okay, that's kind of cool. It says the minimum compensation required under Minnesota law must be paid over a reasonable earnings period not to exceed 14 calendar days. I guess they just picked the max. Any gratuities received by TNC driver from a rider are not included as part of the minimum compensation required by Minnesota law. That's good. It says, for example, if a driver completes 3 trips in a bi-weekly period listed below, trip 1 is 5 miles, 15 minutes. Trip 2 is 7 miles, 20 minutes. Trip 3 is 9 miles, 28 minutes. And it says the total is 21 miles and 63 minutes. The driver will receive a minimum compensation of no less than $1.28 per mile times 21 total miles plus the 31 cents minute times 63 total minutes, which equals $46.41 plus any gratuities. I'm gonna take these values and I wanna play around with them a little bit. If I get paid $1.28, is that it? Yep, $1.28 per mile and 31 cents per minute. What would my pay be for these trips? Show me before the sum. So trip 1 would have been $11.05. Trip 2, 15, 16. Trip 3 would be 20. Add them together. So 46.41, 46.40. No, I'm missing something. What am I missing here? If the minimum is only applied to the total, can this be taken advantage of? If a driver takes a ride below the min and another ride above. It says you're absolutely, this could be taken advantage of. Here's how. Let's say the minimum pay per ride is $5. Very short ride, only 1 mile and takes 5 minutes. The earnings would be $2.83. This would be below the minimum. The longer ride would be 10 miles, 25 minutes. So that would be $20.55. This would be above the minimum. So individually, trip 1 wouldn't meet the minimum pay. However, if the minimum pay is only applied to the total earnings, then the driver would still get paid. Total earnings would be $2.83 plus $20.55 for a total of $23.38. Since the $23.38 is above the minimum, the driver gets paid the full amount. The minimum shouldn't be the $5. The min should be 1.28 per mile. Well, I guess yeah. Okay, I see. No, so it's actually, so they're probably paying underneath that minimum as long as the minimum, they'll reimburse if the minimum for the total isn't applied to later. Okay. But it's all a matter of when they're applying the minimum, because they're applying the minimum to the total instead of to the individual. If they were applying it individually, you'll come out making more money because there are going to be scenarios in which you're probably just subsidizing yourself, which sounds disgusting. Like, how can you subsidize yourself? It's not. I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan of how this was implemented. They definitely took advantage of them. All right, we're gonna move on. Actually, no. Let me make sure I finish reading that. If there's anything else here. It says the confusion stemmed from drivers thinking that they get the rate per ride instead of both Uber and Lyft have said the minimum compensation required under Minnesota law would be paid out after adding up the minutes and miles driven during a 14-day window. Trips driven where the drivers made more than the minimum rate could be used to average out the trips where they made less than the new rate. So that's pretty much what we just did. That's the math we just went through. If you've earned less than the required minimum compensation for the earnings period, you will be paid an additional sum accounting for the difference in your earnings and the minimum compensation. At least to get that, right? kind of. It's set up in a way that is like it protects you if you're a really bad driver, but it doesn't protect you if you're a good driver. And they probably set it in a way that it's not much of a difference. Salman, one of the drivers who called Uber on Monday, said drivers are concerned that there is now a public perception that the new law gave them a pay increase when drivers aren't seeing that increase, especially if they increase the prices for the passengers. So it looks like they use this as, hey, we're going to increase the prices for the passengers, even though nothing's really changed in how much you're making. That's insane. In the months leading up to the law's enactment, several smaller rideshare companies, including MyWheels, Rides, Hitch, and Move, entered the market hoping to pick up market share if Uber and Lyft left the state. Many promised better pay rates for drivers, but Salman said he's only driven for Uber and Lyft, which still dominates the market. I'd be interested in seeing how drivers are doing on the other platforms, if they're on the other platforms. He says they might pay more, he set up the smaller rideshare companies, but it'll take way longer to get a ride, which typically true. Now, let's see what we're going to cover next. Well, of course, do our best to keep updated with that, see how drivers are feeling. It might take more time. It's barely been 2 weeks since it's been implemented. We'll see. There, I think this is a Reddit post. Yeah, this is Reddit. Let's see what people are saying. These aren't necessarily drivers. These are people who live in Minnesota or Minneapolis. This person says the important paragraph is here. The confusion stemmed from drivers thinking that they get the rate per ride. Instead, both Uber and Lyft have said the minimum compensation required under Minnesota law would be paid out after adding up the minutes and miles driven during the 14-day window. See what they say about that. Back. So it says the law has been in effect for 4 days, hasn't changed anything. Time to scrap it, I guess. He's being facetious, pretty much just saying give it some more time, and we'll see. It is slow season too, so maybe during busy season they'll make more money, or maybe during slow season they'll be protected from not making enough money. Still don't understand how people think they can make a living on Lyft and Uber nowadays. It's a side gig at best. Am I wrong for not caring? There's plenty of other jobs paying the same or better that are hiring. I don't understand the inner workings of how the system works or how the laws was supposed to help, but I suspect the companies worked it to their monetary advantage somehow. The top will skim any cream they can. I agree. But and like when you're pushing Uber and Lyft, you have to think about it's chess. It's chess, and it's looking like Uber and Lyft came out on top. You got to be able to see like how this could be operated or implemented in a way that hurts you. And it's one thing if you're the first, but they're not the first. We've seen New York do this. They're having their issues. We've seen Seattle do this. I'm not seeing a lot of information out of there other than it takes longer to get a ride, but the rides pay pretty well. But they seem to be pretty happy with it. There's other markets that had this where you have to look at it and say, okay, we need to protect ourselves from this happening. Someone says, I wonder if demand will go down. And so even though the dollars per ride will go up, the rides per hour will go down and everything will stay the same. We'll see. So you might drive, put less mileage on your car. That could be cool. That could be fine. Right, let's move on from this. Well, of course, as news comes out regarding that, we'll dive back in and look at it. So this is related, but not specifically to the city. I think this is a sentiment that all drivers are probably feeling. And it says Uber and Lyft drivers say they're earning less, so some are starting their own ride services. Brian started driving for Uber in California in 2013. At the time, it paid enough for his full-time job. Since then, working for the ride-hailing app has become less profitable, he said. But Uber and its rival Lyft still play an important role in his work to recruit customers for his black car service. I get a lot of people that I pick up randomly on Uber asking me, hey, do you do private rides? Brian said in an interview with Business Insider. And I say yes, and I give them my business card, and if they want to book me, I'm happy to give them a price quote. Brian is one of 4 drivers who told Business Insider about starting his own business, offering rides outside Uber and Lyft. He and the other drivers interviewed for this story asked that Business Insider not use their full names for fear of being deactivated by Uber and Lyft. Business Insider has identified their identity and work for the apps. All 4 have had a similar experience. Driving exclusively for Uber and Lyft used to pay well, they said, but over the past few years, ride-hailing drivers' earnings have fallen to as little as $3 a ride. It's the truth. They say their businesses offers customers more reliable, higher quality rides that they can often find on the apps and sometimes for less money. I hope to get into this, but I'm just going to say it from now. If you're going to do this, make sure you do it correctly. Make sure you follow the laws. Make sure you have the proper insurance. There are people out there who are willing to risk it. I'm not. And I'm so close to achieving a major financial milestone of being debt-free. It would suck if someone sued me for $250,000 because I got into an accident and I didn't have proper insurance. That would set me back for years. And it's not worth the risk for me. You do you. My advice is do it as properly as possible. About half of Brian's trips come from his list of private clients, he told BI. The other he still finds on Uber and Lyft, mostly to fill in what some drivers call dead miles. distance driven to get to or from a ride, which apps don't compensate drivers for. They do. It's just not well compensated, but they do. A trip for a private client could involve picking someone up at 3:30 a.m., going to the airport, or driving to and from a baseball game on the weekend. Those trips tend to make him more money than similar routes on the apps. True, since Uber and Lyft aren't taking a share of the fare. Unlike his experience with the apps, he's gotten to know many of the people he drives for, which he said helps generate repeat businesses and gets him new customers. I won't advertise, but someone will post me on the Nextdoor app like, hey, this driver is good, reliable, his prices are reasonable. When Business Insider asked whether drivers can pitch their own businesses while on a trip for Uber, an Uber spokesperson said the app's drivers are independent contractors. The spokesperson also referenced company statistics that Uber drivers make more than $30 an hour while active on the app. So I want to be super clear here because I don't want you guys getting in trouble. It is okay to convert a passenger to your private business, but you cannot cancel the ride to do it. I want to be super clear. First of all, you can do whatever you want. It's not that you can or can't. It is against Uber and Lyft's terms of service for you to accept the ride, drive to the location, say, hey, I want to cancel this ride and do this ride instead for cash. That is against their terms of service. It doesn't break any laws to do that. It's not anti-competitive. It's their terms of service. The correct way to do this, if you have the proper documentation to do this, is you pick someone up on Uber, you tell them about your business, and you tell them that maybe your next ride, I'll come and get you. Depending on where you live, you have to schedule the ride, do certain things, whatever. But don't let people confuse you and make you think that it is okay to cancel a ride and take cash or Square or whatever from a passenger. Your Uber and Lyft account can be deactivated as a result. It's in the TOS. Like I've read the TOS, it's there. So if you want to take that risk, that's on you. You're an adult, do you? But understand the difference and how you can do this and not get in trouble, and do this and get in trouble. That's why when they were talking to the Uber rep, they didn't say no. They pretty much just said an Uber spokesperson said the app's drivers are independent contractors. The spokesperson also referenced company statistics that Uber drivers make more than $30 an hour while active on the app. A Lyft spokesperson referenced the company's terms of service, which states that the drivers can have other employment, including but not limited to providing services similar to the services to other companies. So they're very specific in how they word it because they don't want to say, yeah, that's fine. They'll lose business. But in their terms of service, it says, you will not, while providing the rideshare services, operate as a public or common carrier or taxi service, accept street hails, charge for rides except as expressly provided in this agreement, demand that a rider pay in cash, or use a credit card reader such as Square Reader to accept payment, or engage in any other activity in a manner that is inconsistent with your obligations under the agreement. So if you're going to convert a passenger to your private pool, it needs to be after that ride. You can do it during that, of course, but you're not allowed to cancel that ride and then demand cash or payment. It's right there. Oh man, I didn't realize we were going to talk about the rideshare professor. It says Torsten, a ride-hailing driver and YouTuber who makes videos about the industry, said he's noticed more drivers trying to develop their own business over the past year and a half. That's true. He offers an online course for drivers looking to make the change, with advice ranging from pitching Uber and Lyft riders on their services to navigating commercial insurance. I'm not a fan of this guy, but unlike a couple of the other YouTubers out there, he does teach people to do this properly. He understands the value of doing it properly. And I respect him for that. Not a fan of him, but I respect him for it. I haven't checked out his course, but if you're going to learn from someone, I think he's a good person to learn it from. Riders are often looking for a better deal. He said that he often prices his rides for private clients below the going rate for a similar trip on Uber. Prices for various app-based services such as Uber and Airbnb have increased over the past few years as the so-called millennial lifestyle subsidy has dwindled. The rider and the driver are pretty much experiencing the same story. Offering private rides has its costs. Drivers have to buy their own commercial insurance and develop their list of clients. Many drivers who start their own business also drive high-end vehicles such as luxury sedans and SUVs, which can involve a higher monthly auto loan or lease payment. I want to show you guys something that Buddha, he was in chat earlier, don't know if he's still here, but he shared how Uber is starting to offer people more money if they have their own commercial insurance. I'm going to pull it up for you. And so here it is. And go check him out. I believe he has his own YouTube channel that he just started. He's also over on X. I'll show you his handle in a second. It says you would have earned $42,317 extra based on your trips in the last 12 months. Uber is introducing a new $1 commercial supplement for every mile with a passenger in the car for Los Angeles drivers who obtain a commercial permit and pay for their own commercial insurance. So of course, you'll need to weigh in if this is worth it for you. If you drive enough for commercial insurance, first you got to go out and get a quote for commercial insurance. But off the top of my mind, I would pay $800 per month for commercial insurance to have this. If you drive more than 800 miles in a month, you'll make your money back. And I do that. I can do that in a week. There's sometimes I can do that in a day if I'm taking long rides. All right, so you get to bring your own commercial permit and commercial auto insurance. California law requires that rideshare drivers have specific insurance with high miles or high limits and extra coverage required by California laws. So there has been, and I pushed this for a long time. I pushed this before it was popular, where, Uber noticed that, or Uber has said that a large chunk of the costs associated with the payment is from insurance. And I'm like, I think insurance is a good thing to jump on, where we can, with Uber and with Lyft, fight against the insurance companies. The problem is the government mandates these companies require a certain level of insurance. I think the level is too high. And when you get government involved, student loans is a very good example. Student loans are given out by the government. Because of that, universities, who are government owned, are able to set prices in accordance with that, which is what has caused the prices of school to inflate. So very similar here is government is mandating that these companies have to have a certain insurance, and no matter how much that insurance costs, you have to pay it. So these insurance companies can, and I don't know if they're doing this on purpose. I don't know if it's because accidents are actually happening. I haven't taken a deep dive into their books, but Uber has said that these insurance companies are charging rates that are significantly higher than any other TNC provider, taxis and things like that. And it could be because rideshare drivers crash more often. That could be it. But I would want to see that data. And I have maintained that I've wanted this for a while, even before this popped up, that I would like the ability to pay for my own commercial insurance so that Uber and Lyft isn't taking a cut of insurance. I think that's cool. I think we should have the chance to do this. What worries me about how they're phrasing this is that it's supplement. It's not replacing it completely. They'll still take some, which is a problem for me. But I like where this is going, and we should push for this. We should definitely push for this. So Buddha shared this with us. His handle is at Hustlin' Buddha over on X. I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to paste it in chat. So that's his link. I'm also going to paste my link if you want to come on X and argue with me about stuff. I'm always down to have debates. Just be respectful and focus on the argument. I have a list of rules right here. It's pinned. To foster engaging and productive conversations, please consider the following guidelines. Avoid personal attacks. 2, answer questions directly. A lot of people like to not answer questions and it stalls debates. Don't misrepresent my points. If I said it, I said it. If I didn't say it, I didn't say it. If you need clarity, that's fine. Seek clarity before you make assumptions. These are the only 3 things that I ask. So come and follow. And I'll also put the drivers coast to coast in here. I was talking about them earlier. They do their podcast on Mondays at 7 p.m. EST. So you can check them out too. But let's get back to the story. Actually, I'm going to take a quick break. I got to use the bathroom, guys. And I knew it was going to be a long stream, and I knew I would have to do this. So I'll be right back. I have returned. All right, let's see where we're at. All right, continuing with this private business stuff. Offering private rides has its costs. Drivers have to buy their own commercial insurance and develop their list of clients. Many drivers who start their own business also drive high-end vehicles such as luxury sedans and SUVs, which can involve a higher monthly auto loan or lease. So I've considered doing this myself, and ultimately decided it's not for me. I'll explain why. So one, I don't know how rare this is, but in my city there is no Black XL option. You can't order a Lyft Black XL or Uber Black XL or whatever Uber's version of it is. So one, I'm limited to I wouldn't even be able to do the luxury type. I'd have to use my own car. And for Charleston, I would have to get a different license plate, a commercial license plate. And with that commercial license plate, I can't use that in my city on Uber and Lyft. I know some other cities are different. So I would have to have a second car in order to take private rides the correct way. And I do. I could use my wife's car. I could. But in order for me, if I'm out and I'm doing Uber and Lyft, and one of my clients say they need a ride somewhere, I'd have to go home, switch the cars, and take them. I don't think that's worth it. And most of my private clients would be airport trips. And even if I price myself $10 better than Uber and Lyft, I still don't think it would justify all the effort that would have to go into it, in addition to the commercial insurance and client building. my time with rideshare is going to decrease. Once I'm out of debt, I'm going to go from being a full-time rideshare driver to being a weekend warrior, a part-time driver. And so I don't see the purpose of investing into a new car when I already have one. That's just going to set me back from being debt-free. My goal isn't to be a long-term rideshare driver. My goal is to use rideshare as a stepping stone into something else. And when I'm debt-free, because my bills will be so low, I won't have to make a lot of money. I'll be able to pay my bills by working the weekends. In fact, I'll be able to pay my bills with just my YouTube money, which will free me up to go and chase the thing I want to go and chase. For me, it's being a full-time YouTuber. I also want to get my pilot's license. I might go and do EMT, not for the money, because that's something that interests me. So I feel like doing private rides in the way I would have to do it legally in my city would be a setback towards my other goals, when my goal is to not be a driver. So for me, it's not worth it. If your long-term goal is to be a driver, I don't think that's the best thing to do. The problem is that you can only make money when you're sitting in the seat, and you should find a way to make money like a little more passively. But if that's your thing, the way I live my life isn't for everyone. If that's what you want, then you should do this. Just do it smartly. Don't use that. Save up for it. Don't go and buy a brand new. Buy it used. Like there's smart ways to do it. Even if I don't agree that you should do it, there's still smart ways to do it. Phil, an Uber driver in Ontario, Canada. Actually, I think you guys heard enough. You guys understand enough of what's going on with this article. Yeah, let's see what else we got in this category. So this one is some Massachusetts news. They too have a minimum pay, and I need to do some more research into them. When theirs went into effect, I was in my own world, just taking rides. This one's titled "Ride-hailing drivers in Mass moving to unionize under new law." So this is from December 4th, a couple weeks ago, 1 or 2 weeks. Let me zoom in here for you guys. It says labor organizers say they have the required number of signatures from Uber and Lyft drivers in Massachusetts to take the next step to form a union. Now, for the rest of the world, or for the rest of America, I should say, drivers can't really unionize because we're independent contractors. But I think there is some law. Let's keep reading, because like I said, I'm kind of behind on this one, but maybe this article will spell it out for us. It says voters approved a ballot initiative giving ride-hail drivers the right to collectively bargain last month. The measure requires a two-step process to organize drivers. After 5% of drivers agree to form a union, an organization group will be given a full list of active drivers in the state. An exclusive bargaining unit can be established with the support of 25 of all active drivers. Okay, red flags. So first of all, whether you agree or disagree that we should have unions, 5% of drivers, all you need is 5% of drivers' signatures to form a union. That's not enough. I don't think that's enough. That's nothing. I want to say so much, but I just don't understand. I don't know enough about this yet. So we're going to keep reading. But for sure, by the time we're done with this, I'm sure I'll have my opinion. So again, I'm going to read that again. After 5% of drivers agree to form a union, an organization group will be given a full list of active drivers in the state. Man. An exclusive bargaining unit can be established within the support of 25% of all active drivers. That's higher. I don't really understand. An exclusive bargaining unit can be established. What is a bargaining unit? I need to understand the difference between forming a union and a bargaining union. What is the difference between forming a union and a bar unit? A union is the organization formed by employees that collectively represent their interests in negotiations with an employer, while a bargaining unit is the specific group of employees within a workplace that are represented by the union and collectively bargained for as a single entity. Still not fully grasping the difference here. Let's get more specific. Explain in the context mass. New change, I guess. Oops, sorry. Nope, I don't know how to spell that. Okay, I'm just gonna keep reading. Hopefully it becomes more clear as we go. On Wednesday, Roxana Rivera, assistant to the president of the local 32BJ, an affiliate of the Service Employee International Union, said the organization believes it has the necessary signatures to start the process. Which one? Rivera said that the acquired signatures would be presented to the Employment Relations Board to review once the law goes into effect January 3rd. Okay, so apparently there's a law that allows them to unionize, and they believe they already have the signatures, and once the law goes into effect, they'll submit the signatures. We don't want any delay, Rivera said. We look forward to working with them to implement it as quickly as possible. Rivera said once formed, the collective bargaining unit will be called App Drivers Union. Collective bargaining unit would call App Drivers Union. Okay. She said the union is a joint collaboration between her group and a local chapter of the International Association of Machinists and Aerospace Workers, also known as the Machinists. I don't like this. don't like this because unions could fight for different things. And it's very possible that what the app workers need might conflict with what the machinists want and vice versa. And so I am not a fan of this. That just from a union perspective, that doesn't sound great. Ride-hailing drivers are considered independent contractors, and federal labor laws that protect employees' rights to form unions do not apply to them. I understand that. The passage of the ballot measure made Massachusetts the first state to grant ride-hailing drivers the ability to collectively bargain over working conditions. Okay, so I was right in my assessment that a new law went into effect, and they're submitting their signatures once it goes into effect on January 3rd. So we'll revisit this. In the summer, a $175 million settlement established a $32.50 minimum wage and earned sick pay. The settlement did not change their employment classification. I do have a friend. He's another host of the Drivers Coast to Coast, and he sometimes posts screenshots and anecdotal evidence of how things have changed since they have this new minimum pay. And he's noted that there's been a lot less surges and things of that nature. But I need I need to be studied more. I can't rely on individual anecdotal evidence, but I also don't doubt him. You know, I'll have to do some research into what other drivers in his area are saying. It says Uber spokesperson Katie signaled Wednesday that the company will seek some changes to the new law, saying she was concerned with the threshold to form a union, the 5%. I think if you think this new law and this union is great for rideshare drivers, that's fine. But come on, 5%, that's nothing. Everyone's going to become a union, everyone. We expect to work with the legislature on needed adjustments to the law, and once it becomes effective next year, with the Employee Relations Board on a robust rulemaking process. Again, drivers strongly supported our agreement with the Attorney General over the summer, so we have no doubt that if drivers choose to organize, they will hold the benefit they have already won central to any negotiations, and maintaining their flexibility will remain the top priority. Again, sounds great on paper. I'm worried about the execution. Just like in Minnesota, I am worried about the execution. I'm concerned. So we'll definitely have to do some follow up on this story. Maybe I'll talk to Matt about this. All right, on to the next. Lyft urges Chicago riders to ask City Hall to reject new tax. So we'll circle back to Chicago for a little bit. This is the last one in this category. Lyft is asking its customers in Chicago to urge the city's council to reject a proposed tax on rideshare in the downtown zone during the weekend, marking the latest hurdle as Mayor Brandon Johnson races to close a nearly $1 billion deficit by end of year. Lyft Inc. is asking its customers in Chicago to urge the city's council to reject a proposed tax on rideshares in the downtown zone during the weekend, as a proposed ordinance seeks to raise as much as $15 million a year by slightly expanding Chicago's downtown zone and extending a surcharge currently levied on rideshare services during the weekdays through weekends. Alderman Daniel LaSpata introduced the ordinance this month as a way to reel in more revenue from recreation and tourism dollars as the city council searches for ways to close a $982 million deficit. Have they tried spending less money? The Chicago City Council is considering another tax on rideshare, according to an email Lyft sent to Chicago riders on Thursday. If passed, riders like you may face price increases on top of high cost of living and inflation. This is the last thing riders in Chicago need. A spokesperson, I'm sorry, I can't even move on until I figure out why there's such a big deficit. New chat. Why break down why Chicago has a it says Chicago's billion-dollar deficit for 2025 is a complex issue with roots in a variety of factors. Here's a breakdown of the key contributors. Structural imbalances, pension obligations. A major driver in the city's enormous pension debt for years, Chicago underfunded its pension system for city workers, leading to a massive shortfall that now requires significant contributions. Rising personal costs. Beyond pensions, the cost of salaries and benefits for city employees continue to rise. This includes police and fire departments, which make up a significant portion of the city's workforce. Okay, I can get behind that part. Debt burden. Chicago carries a heavy debt load from borrowing for infrastructure projects and other expenses. Servicing this debt consumes a significant chunk of the city's budget. Now, I'm gonna just say, I'm anti-debt in my personal life. I want you to be anti-debt too. And here's a clear example of how using debt at the city level is hurting the city. Like, there are cities out there that don't have debt, that operate on a surplus. I feel like one law that we should pass that should just be common sense is government bodies cannot go into debt. Like, I don't feel like that's controversial. From the federal government to the city municipalities, we should stop going into debt. I don't understand. So number 2 says it has revenue challenges, lower than expected corporate tax revenue. The city's anticipated higher corporate tax revenue, but economic conditions haven't delivered as expected. This shortfall contributes to the deficit. Property taxes. While property taxes are a major source of revenue for Chicago, there's political resistance to raising them further, limiting the city's ability to increase income this way. Yeah, because the first thing you do is to decrease your spending. I think that's fine. I'm not against increasing taxes. I'm just against increasing taxes when you're not doing anything to cut your spending or you're using debt. Over reliance on one-time revenues. Chicago has sometimes relied on one-time revenues like selling assets or using federal aid to balance its budgets. This isn't sustainable and creates future problems. So yeah. So as it stands, with the exception of the police and firefighters, like I'm not supporting. I don't think this will affect drivers. It might encourage people not to take rideshare more, depending on how much taxes like increase the prices. But no, they should vote no for this. Figure it out some other way. Again, drivers strongly supported our agreement with the Attorney General over the summer, so we have no doubt that if drivers choose to organize on the benefit. This is the wrong article, sorry. This is where we're at. The Chicago City Council is considering another tax on rideshare, according to an email from Lyft. If passed, riders like you may face price increases on top of high costs of living and inflation. This is the last thing riders in Chicago need. A spokeswoman for the city's budget department, Lakeisha Gage Woodard, declined to comment on the proposed ordinance or Lyft stance, given the city is in the midst of budget negotiations. I'm not going to comment on this thing because we're in the middle of budget negotiations. Okay. Lyft also urged riders on Thursday to send emails to their aldermen through a website the company created and urged lawmakers to reject the proposal if it comes up for a vote. The proposed ordinance has been referred to by the City Council's Finance Committee. More than 2,000 emails have been sent to City Hall through this process as of Friday morning, according to a Lyft representative. That's cool. But I think that, this specific conversation aside, I think that if, first of all, let me say that Lyft and Uber have done things that take advantage of drivers. I'm not negating that. But I think that if there are issues where Uber and Lyft drivers can combine forces with Uber and Lyft, those are issues that we should take care of first, because they're going to be the easiest issues to address. And for me, it's that the insurance. Both Uber and Lyft have made it a point to specifically show us how much is going towards insurance because they want to highlight that as the problem in the circle. And if we both attack that and figure out a way that we either make it cheaper or we can provide our own insurance, that's a win for everyone involved, except the insurance companies. Screw them. And again, not negating the evilness that they do to us. I think that it's okay. I think that this is an issue that Chicago drivers, Chicago passengers, Uber and Lyft as companies should all get together and say, nah, we're not responsible for paying for your debt. You did that. You're mismanaging the city. And if you don't fix your mismanagement habits, then what's to say that you don't continue to mismanage it? Like, no, you got to figure out how you fix that. Man, this reminds me of the federal government. So yeah, that's my standpoint on that. We're gonna move on. We're gonna get out of this category. The next thing we're gonna focus on is some crime. I said it earlier. Usually I don't do too much crime, but I think that because I don't want to scare people from doing Uber and Lyft. I think that the potential of something negative happening to you is very low. So the goal of this is not to scare you, but the goal is to make you aware. I think being aware is important, and I'm going to start sharing some of these stories that pop up, following them, and I'll do my best to do them at the end of the podcast because I know some people don't want to hear about them, but I'm going to do them regardless. So this first one we're going to talk about is this 19-year-old accused of stabbing a Lyft driver in Frisco. I think that's in California. I'm probably wrong. Texas. Definitely wrong. It happened just before 6 p.m. on Monday at the Legends at Legacy apartment complex on Legacy Drive. Officers found the Lyft driver in the parking lot with a deep cut on his neck. Despite his serious injury, he was able to tell them that the suspect was his customer. Several hours later, officers spotted the Lyft driver's stolen car while patrolling near the intersection of Highway 423 and Highway 380. They tried to pull the vehicle over, but the driver took off. Wait, hold on. He stabbed him and stole his car. Okay. Officers from several departments helped to chase and capture the suspect, who was identified as 19-year-old Antoine Williams of Frisco. Williams is now facing charges of aggravated robbery and evading arrest. He also had an outstanding warrant for allegedly encouraging a child to perform an act on him. Okay. The victim was taken to the hospital with life-threatening injuries. He's reportedly now stable thanks to the quick actions of the responding officers. Happy he was able to make it out alive. We are very fortunate for the quick and skilled response of our officers, members of the Frisco Fire Department, and the hospital's medical team, which clearly saved the life of this victim. I wonder if he stabbed him just to save him. Like, oh, this is crazy, man. A Lyft spokesperson said they have permanently banned Williams from the platform. Thanks. I hope that's what you would do, and are helping police with the investigation. Okay. think that's that. We'll move on to the next. Family of man killed in crash involving Uber is suing company and former driver. This is when that insurance comes into play. Let's see. I think there's a video. We gotta do some ads. So we'll wait a second. The family of a man who was killed when his Uber driver made an illegal turn and crashed into 2 other vehicles in Philadelphia is suing Uber and the driver. Oops. Come on.
Deadly crash is now suing Uber and the driver who was behind the wheel. Stephen Moultrie died in August after the crash on Kelly Drive. Police say his Uber driver made an illegal left turn when they were hit by another car. In their lawsuit, Moultrie's family accuses Uber of fraudulently marketing itself as a safer alternative to other types of transportation. It also
makes a little bit of a stretch, but go ahead, get paid, do your thing.
Uber for inadequately monitoring its drivers. NBC 10 reached out to Uber for a response. The company.
I'm not quite sure what kind of monitoring will change this. Definitely is the driver's fault. Definitely should be sued. Definitely did something illegal that he shouldn't have done. So I'm on board with all of that. It's unfortunate that someone lost a life as a result of this. So I'm on board with all of that. I don't understand. Like, I feel like they didn't pick strong legal ground to stand on, even though there was stronger ground for them to stand on. That's the part I'm a little shaky on.
He told us, quote, "While we cannot comment on pending litigation, there are no words to describe this tragic loss. Our hearts remain with the rider's loved ones." Uber also says the driver was banned from its platform. And we have asked for an update from police to see if any criminal charges were filed in the crash. We'll keep you updated on that.
Says the 44-year-old Uber driver who has not been identified was driving a 2015 black Nissan Altima Energy on Kelly Drive when he made an illegal left turn onto Reservoir Drive directly onto the path of a 2024 white Nissan Rogue that was traveling northbound. The crash caused the Uber to spin and strike a third vehicle, a black 2016 BMW. It says Moultrie was taken to Temple Hospital where he was pronounced dead. The Uber driver was taken to the hospital with minor injuries. No injuries were reported. The Uber spokesperson told NBC they removed the driver's access to the platform as soon as the crash was reported to them. And they kind of just go into who he was. It's unfortunate. It's really unfortunate. I don't have much more to say on that. All right, so this is an interesting one. Let's do this one first. Fake Uber driver allegedly stole thousands in crypto from customers. Let's see what they have going on. All right, so I'll wait for the ad. It says a man named, I can't pronounce that. I'm not going to try. Okay, this video
charges after he allegedly posed as an Uber driver
and then stole hundreds of thousands of dollars in cryptocurrency from customers by accessing their phones. Fox 10's Nicole Christine joins us live with details. This is a sophisticated crime, but in a way simple. It's amazing how quickly this guy was able to get that information off riders' phones.
Yeah, it sure was. John and Christina, this is the scene where this was happening outside of the W in Scottsdale, and they say that
I think that's Arizona.
Hussein picked up 2 victims, one in March, one in October. They say he posed as an Uber driver, and then his secret motive, one that was sophisticated yet simple, as you said, John, was to steal over $200,000 combined in cryptocurrency.
So wait, hold on. He stole $200,000 from 2 people? Is that what I'm hearing?
Prosecutors say the alleged scheme started in both cases with Nuro Hussein calling out the names of his supposed Uber passengers. Once in the vehicle, court documents allege he had 2 different ways of getting the victims' phones, either by saying his was dead or by offering to help troubleshoot the Uber app.
I'm sorry. If I can understand this more if this guy's the passenger. I don't understand this at all. I would never get into a Uber driver's car whose phone is dead. How are they going to take me home? You'd have to be really desperate to get home to deal with that, or just non-confrontational. But what kind of that? How am I going to get home if your phone is dead? And why is your phone dead if you're in a car? Why isn't your phone charged? Like, they're like, I might even say it's a red flag, definitely orange flags, but I don't think I would hand someone my phone so that they could get me home. I'd honestly just cancel. I'd like, nah, I'm good. I'll get another driver.
When it said one victim's driver had not arrived. Once the phone was in his hands, court documents say he was able to transfer a combined $223,000.
Oh, okay. Okay, I get it. He's a fake driver. He doesn't even have an account. So he's explaining why it's showing that his driver hasn't arrived yet. Okay, and then he's using that opportunity to troubleshoot the person's phone, and that's how he's getting the phone. Okay, I got it. Get it.
$223,000 in cryptocurrency, either by phone-to-phone transfer or phone-to-cold storage. The victim from March told police when they asked for their phone back, Hussein gave a concerning response.
He made threats to at least one of the victims that they needed to chill or something bad would happen, and the victim believed that he was armed with a gun, although he did not see a weapon at that time.
Due to the alleged threats and the level of skill shown in the fraud, prosecutors pushed for a cash-only bond of $200,000.
No, you stole.
Able to post bonds, we'd ask for electronic monitoring, and I'd also ask for no use of the internet. Given that this was an extremely sophisticated electronic fraud, we do not want Mr. Hussein to potentially destroy further evidence if it exists.
The state also argued that Hussein is a flight risk due to frequent trips to Ethiopia.
You are not to leave Maricopa County. That's part of my orders today. I understand the state is saying that you do go back and forth. You have to stay here.
This man's leaving. If he posts bond, this man is leaving. He's never coming back.
Now, the judge did place Hussein under a $200,000 secured bond, so he has the opportunity to go through a bond company if possible or pay himself. And also, he will be under electronic monitoring if he does bond out. His next court appearance is scheduled for later this month. Reporting live tonight in Scottsdale.
I definitely want to follow up with that. Okay, so he wasn't even on the Uber Lyft platform, but it's another layer of, for those of you out there who are like canceling people's Uber and Lyft rides for cash, it's another layer of security concern when potential like passengers see this. Then they might report you if they don't feel safe. So just be safe out there. Do things as properly as possible. So that's one's interesting. I don't know. I just saw the title. It says, "Stinky delivery. Uber Eats driver smells weed coming from burrito, police say." So interested in how that happened. An Uber Eats delivery driver smelled something funky with the burrito they had just been called to pick up. So the driver called police in New Jersey. Here's what Washington Township Glucose County Police had to say about it on November 24th. An Uber Eats driver picked up a burrito, but did not notice a strong smell of marijuana wafting from the bag while driving to Glassboro. Concerned, they pulled over in Washington Township and called us to check it out. A police officer then unwrapped the foil, surprised, and found over an ounce of raw marijuana, a bottle of water, and a box of soup instead of rice and beans. This wasn't the kind of wrap anyone ordered, police said. How does that even get mixed up? It says the burrito is now in evidence and we're cooking up this investigation. This sounds so fake, but props to the media team over there at the police station. Investigators asked if anyone with knowledge of the extra greens to give them a call. If you know anything, that's it. Come on. Yo, these stories are so half-baked. No, like, pun intended. We're done with the crime section. Not much more here. The last thing I'm going to do is I want to go through some of these rideshare posts and just get a heart or a pulse on what other rideshare drivers are saying about various things. So this first one says, Waymo is safer than the most advanced human drivers. This is from a new study. This was posted 3 hours ago. Let's check out the study first. It's from Waymo. So grain of salt this. They're all obviously going to toot their own horn. No pun intended. It says new Swiss study, Waymo is safer than most advanced human drivers. Let's see what it says. It says, today we're sharing our new cutting edge research with Swiss Re, one of the world's leading reinsurers, analyzing liability claims related to collisions from 25.3 million fully autonomous miles driven by Waymo. The study uses auto liability claims aggregate statistics as a proxy for at-fault collisions and expands on our previous research. It demonstrates that as we've scaled operations across Phoenix, San Francisco, Los Angeles, and Austin, the Waymo driver significantly outperforms both the overall driving population and the latest generation of human-driven vehicles equipped with advanced driver assistance system. So we just read about a passenger that lost his life due to a driver making an illegal turn. And you have to think about that happened in New Jersey, I think. If self-driving cars come to New Jersey, and let's say they're there already, and a percentage of the population in New Jersey learns about this crash that ended up killing a passenger because the driver did something stupid, why wouldn't that increase their incentive to try a self-driving car that is claiming that they are safer than humans? Whether it's true or not, they do their research, they look things up, they find this study. Even if they don't believe it fully, why wouldn't that increase the likelihood that they would want to try a self-driving car? I don't think that's like unfounded. I don't think that's illogical. I don't see, like, it's not such a far connection. The study compared Waymo's liability claims to human driver baselines, which are based on Swiss Re's data from over 500,000 claims and over 2 billion miles of exposure. It found that Waymo driver demonstrated better safety performance when compared to human driver vehicles, with an 88% reduction in property damage and claims and 92% reduction in bodily injury claims. So another aspect is insurance is playing a bigger role into the take rate for drivers. The cost of having a human drive per mile is significantly higher than the cost of having a self-driving car drive per mile. The cost for a human is about $1.40. Cost for a self-driving car is estimated to be around 40 cents already. And that's not, I don't know if that's including insurance claims, but if insurance is drastically decreased for self-driving cars compared to human drivers, it's only going to make these companies like Uber and Lyft, or the companies that manage the self-driving fleets like Waymo, more aggressive in getting more cars, because it's literally cheaper. It will be cheaper for them per mile than a human. And again, I don't want this to be, and this is the first time I'm seeing this data and like thinking about it, but like how can you, again, this data is from Waymo, who is probably trying to sell their own service. But if anyone reads this and they believe it, including insurance companies, if insurance companies go through this data and they determine that it's valid data, it's going to create a pricing difference where it's just going to be better or more cost effective to have a self-driving car take a person than to have a human take a person. And when these companies learn that, they're going to capitalize on that difference, on that spread, on that delta. The Waymo driver was involved in just 9 property damage claims and 2 bodily injury claims. Both bodily injury claims are still open and described in the paper for the same distance. Human drivers would be expected to have 78 property damage and 26 bodily injury claims. That's pretty good. In fact, I had some videos. Let's watch them. We're gonna go on YouTube and we're gonna watch a video of a passenger's experience with Waymo. I wish I was in a city that had this, but I'm not. So I have to watch other people's videos of it.
So how's your day going today?
I'm sitting in the back of Google's self-driving car in San Francisco. This is not coming soon, it's actually here.
It's already here. You can order it. And if you're in Phoenix, you can order it through the Uber app instead of a human driver.
The app just opening up to the public.
My favorite feature on this new self-driving car around San Francisco is...
And it's everywhere around San Francisco. Impossible to go 5 minutes in this city without seeing one. It's also being used in Los Angeles and Arizona too.
The best part, you don't need to tip.
Los Angeles, Arizona, San Francisco. It's coming to Miami and it's coming to Atlanta next. There's gonna be 5 cities.
Companies have poured billions of dollars to get to this moment. Millions of jobs will be lost to AVs.
And again, the doomsday for self-driving cars, autonomous vehicles, it's replacing all of the drivers. The doomsday is there are enough self-driving cars in a particular market to make it unprofitable for a driver to continue driving.
That's autonomous vehicles.
Let's see us go through this intersection.
But I have so many questions I need answers to.
Uber is suspending its self-driving car operations.
A self-driving car being pulled over by police in San Francisco.
Waymo driverless car clipped a bicyclist. Another crash involving Waymo.
Who is liable?
So all those Waymo accidents they just talked about, to the best of my knowledge, are all here in this study. 2 bodily injury claims, still open, and 9 property damage. But a human driver for that same distance, 78 property damage, 26 bodily injury claims. We're talking about Waymos that do 150,000 rides per week. And this is it. It's not bad.
When a self-driving car crashes into someone, can these cars be hacked? And what happened in a Chinese city where these cars have already become the norm?
So there have been reports about people actually taking Waymos late at night and having sex in the vehicles because there is no human, so anything can go. That's probably not a good idea because there are cameras everywhere in this vehicle. Even when you call support, the first thing they're gonna do is look at you and see you in real time. So can you see us right now?
We have cameras situated.
Download the Waymo app and it's just like ordering an...
So I do think that in cities where you can't order Waymo through Uber and you have to use the Waymo app, I think that they're gonna have a harder time growing, but the people that do use the Waymo app are probably like significantly less likely to go back to human drivers. Whereas in Phoenix, where you could choose between the human or choose between the self-driving car, there's more of a chance for them to go back towards the human, even though it's harder for them to go towards the AV with just the Waymo app. But someone who has downloaded the Waymo app, set it up, they're more likely to stay on the Waymo app than compared to the Phoenix example.
Uber, except it's not.
So I can already see it. It has my initials on it. Wow, it even stops for me. If this was a human driver, I could have just said, hey, it's me, and gotten in, but it's not that smart. So the only way to actually open the door is actually on the app. So now I'm gonna hit unlock.
So that's cool, but also inconvenient. You know, it's if someone's chasing you down, you got to pull out your phone to try to safely get in the car. It's, I don't know, it's a little weird, but you also don't want the wrong person getting into the car. So I can understand that as well.
And it also says the car will only wait up to a couple minutes, and then there's a timer. So let's get in, let's test this out.
I'm just calling because I received a notification from the vehicle. I'm just checking is everything okay.
Yeah, everything is fine. My friend was just getting in the car, and we're ready to start. All good.
You can sit in the front seat without your driver complaining.
Thank you for confirming that. If there's nothing else.
Are you in San Francisco?
The call has been routed to one of Waymo's satellite offices.
Oh, I see. So can you see us
One of Waymo's satellite offices. So she doesn't even say if she's in America or not.
right now?
Yeah, we have cameras situated across the vehicle just to make sure that we have a good view of the riders.
Thank you so much. Have a great day. I'm gonna hit start ride. Oh my God, this is so crazy. We just pulled into oncoming traffic and there's no human in the seat. And it's like crazy. My brain is going crazy right now. This is absolutely insane. And on top of all that, they play ambient music right when you get in, maybe to calm you down, but it's kind of working. Those first few minutes of riding as a passenger without a driver is crazy. It feels actually terrifying. We're going into the center of the intersection without a human, and never in your life have you done something like this. Your brain.
To the best of my knowledge, you can actually like play your own music through their car, someone said, but I haven't obviously verified that myself.
Brain is telling you don't do this. But after probably 5 or at most 10 minutes, the opposite has occurred with me. I actually feel like I really trust this thing, maybe even more than a human driver, which is crazy to say, but that's kind of what's happening. I mean, you see how eloquently it navigates, you see all the data it has, and you kind of get really comfortable riding in this. And you can kind of start to see how quickly self-driving cars have the potential to take over the world.
So this is that thing I'm talking about. Earlier, when we first started, I mentioned how some people say, oh, they ask their drivers if they'll ever take a self-driving, their passengers, if they'll ever take a self-driving car. And they're like, no, all it's going to take is one good instance for them to do it, right? Where Waymo, when they launch in a new city, they start for free. So when they launch in Atlanta and Miami, in order to get that data and to get that training, they're going to give free rides. Now, someone who's skeptical about self-driving cars, who is strapped for cash, they don't have their own car, they need to get to work, they want to save some money, they might be willing to try it. And then once they do try it, if their experience is similar to this guy who tried it for his first time, you can see how quickly he started to think, you know what? This is starting to feel a little more convenient than a human driver. But let's continue.
No way. Wow. You know, you would think it would go kind of slow and precautious, but it actually drives like a human driver, which is good. You don't want it to be too slow or timid. You got to kind of be a little bit bold when you drive. Otherwise, that could cause disturbances or accidents. And at all times, you can see whatever is within a perimeter of you. Way in front, way to the left. Like, it's actually fascinating that it can know how many cars are to the left. Look at this car. It's stuck in the middle of the intersection,
comforting.
but that doesn't stop us from going. We even maneuvered around it a little bit. It's also super interesting. So you know how sometimes you're sitting at a red light and you're getting a little impatient, so you ease your foot off the brake just a little bit before it goes green? This car does that. And there's no practical reason for it to do that. But my guess is it's doing that to mimic human behavior. Whether you're driving or sitting in the passenger seat, that's what we do as humans. The experience is meant to feel like you're with a human. Oh, it knows it needs to go to the right lane, so it's trying to decide when it can actually feasibly do that. Seems a bit.
So to his point, if all the Waymos are, if he enjoys the smoothness of the Waymo and all the Waymos have that smoothness, the problem will be that with human drivers, we all drive differently. Some people drive really bad from what I've heard. And if you're able to get consistency, people love consistency. People love lack of change. So if you're able to get a lack of change by ordering a Waymo, it's going to make you more likely to order a Waymo versus you're playing Russian roulette when it comes to drivers. You don't know if you're going to get some guy. Women have to worry about feeling safe. Women have to worry about getting hit on. There are different things that you have to worry about every single time you order a ride with Uber or Lyft. It's Russian roulette. If Waymos can get rid of some of that problematic things for passengers, and you know every single time those things will be gone, and you might have to sacrifice elsewhere, why wouldn't they choose this?
Bit stressed. So you see that? It's like we need to go to the... Wow, this is crazy. We're not even fully in the lane because the bus was like kind of coming into our lane. So we kind of maneuvered out without hitting that guy. It's actually really fascinating. This thing is extremely smart.
Waymo has huge ambitions. It's expanding fast with more than 700 cars on the road, and 300 of them are here in San Francisco.
So we said earlier, based off of how many rides they've taken total, each car has averaged 200 plus rides per week on average. One car. They have 700. And I don't know if you've missed it, but they partnered with Hyundai for Hyundai to make them more cars. And they also have a cheaper car that they're working on as well from China. And they have the factory that's going to produce the cars that has already started producing cars for them in Georgia.
This is one of the many parking lots where Waymos will come to charge. And what's really cool is that they know to charge themselves. If their battery is low, they just stop what they're doing, head over to a charging station and come and charge up.
Waymo is now testing out vans known as Zeekr, which is more spacious.
This is the cheaper Chinese van that it's estimated to be around, I think it was $25,000. Pretty cheap.
and it could help people get around one day. But it also still faces a ton of challenges, like people vandalizing its cars or putting cones in front of them and around them just to mess with the vehicles and prevent them from doing their job. Google is not the only company in this space. See, Uber once saw autonomous vehicles as the future of transportation. They spent
I think he's about to go into that lady that got killed as a result of this.
over $1 billion in developing self-driving technology, aiming to disrupt the ride-sharing industry. And the goal was clear: replace human drivers with AI.
By the way, if you're enjoying this video, subscribe to this channel because I'm making more videos just like this about tech, economics, and more.
But in 2018, an Uber autonomous vehicle struck and killed a pedestrian in Arizona.
A self-driving car hitting and killing a woman. It is a first right here on our Valley Street.
That brought the challenges and risks into focus. See, the crash involved a Volvo SUV that had Uber's self-driving system. There was a human safety driver behind the wheel, but they weren't paying close attention to the
She was watching, I think, Judge Judy, if I remember correctly.
road, and the pedestrian died. The driver was ultimately charged with negligent homicide and would even be given jail time. In 2021, Uber sold its self-driving division to Aurora for a crazy $4 billion. Today, Uber still has an interest in autonomous vehicles, but it's taking a more cautious approach. And then there's Cruise. Cruise is a
The cautious approach is that it's offloading the risk to different companies. They're not doing it themselves anymore. And Cruise is no longer a threat, guys. Cruise is bowed out of the market. In fact, we'll quickly, I'll talk about it today. Cruise stops self-driving. Paywall. So Cruise is owned by GM. Says General Motors said on Tuesday it will end a Robotaxi development and its majority-owned, money-losing Cruise business, a blow to the ambitions of the largest U.S. automaker, which had made the advanced technology unit a top priority. It's crazy that someone who makes cars and could probably do this cheaply couldn't figure it out. The Detroit-based car company said it would no longer fund work on self-driving robotaxis, given the considerable time and resources that would be needed to scale the business, along with an increasing competitive robotaxi market. Sounds like Waymo and Tesla made them shrink. The automaker has invested more than $10 billion in Cruise since 2016. Cruise will be folded into its group working on driver assistant technology. The move comes on the heels of GM scaling back plans for electric vehicles, settling its stake in one of its joint ventures, battery plants, and reconstructing its China business, leaving the company more focused on its profitable business of making gasoline-powered pickup trucks and other large vehicles. It sounds like they just couldn't crack the code. As rideshare drivers, we should be rooting for this. We should be hoping that Google follows suit and bows out, that Tesla can't really get it done. But GM's failure isn't representative of Waymo's failure or of Tesla's failure. They're doing things differently. But it is odd to see. I think what's really driving Google to be successful is their implementation of software and how they do their self-driving car stuff, and not so much the cost of the vehicle, or that Google's in a position to subsidize the cost of the vehicle in a way that GM isn't able to do so, even though they manufacture their own cars. Most of Google's income comes from software, which has a much lower overhead, versus most of GM's income probably comes from selling of actual cars, which probably has a much higher overhead and thinner margins. So Waymo probably has more money to play with because of their parent company. And then we'll just have to see what Tesla does. You know, Tesla has a lot of data already, so they kind of have the Google part of it, and they just got to get the hardware out there. So we'll see. Let's go back to the video.
A self-driving car company that was founded in 2013, but then acquired by GM in 2016 for a reported $1 billion. The company's valuation is in the billions now, and Cruise has made huge strides in
This part is
autonomous
kind of
vehicles,
relevant.
but
Video
it's
came out
also
before.
faced challenges, including a suspension of operations
We'll
in
skip
October
ahead a little
testing.
bit.
So when for your safety, take off your seatbelt in the middle of the ride.
Cruise recently got to resume public road testing.
So when you do something like take off your seatbelt in the middle of the ride, a voice comes on and says, hey, put on your seatbelt, this is for your safety, and if not, we may call for a human to come and check in on you and see what's going on. And it kind of reminds me of like being reprimanded by a teacher, like, hey, if you don't follow the rules, the principal is going to come.
But how does this actually work from a technology standpoint?
Self-driving cars use sensors, cameras, and smart software to drive themselves on road. See, cameras see lanes, traffic lights, and other cars, while radar measures distances and finds things in the way. The software takes all this info and decides how to steer, speed up, and slow down, just like a good human driver would.
So the difference is with Waymo and Tesla specifically, Tesla ditched the LiDARs. They're trying to do their autonomous system purely on cameras, which is significantly cheaper than relying on this technology, which is why Tesla's like claiming regular Uber and Lyft drivers will be able to just put their cars on the road that they already own to do Robotaxi stuff. So that's kind of one of the differences. There are some limitations to that. And right now, I think I would trust a Waymo more than I would a Tesla right now. I think Tesla has more data, maybe, but Waymo has more sensors that make me feel safe.
These cars also connect to the internet and use Jeeps to find their way. This helps them get real-time traffic news, know about road conditions, and even talk to other cars or traffic signals. See, being online helps them make better decisions and work more efficiently.
So there's a fire truck or an ambulance.
And in emergencies, they can even react to signals or ambulances or police cars and move out of the way or escape safely. All these features make self-driving cars smarter and better at handling the changes on the road.
We had a fire truck coming by and it just pulled over very eloquently and said, hey, we gotta yield to this emergency vehicle. Okay, so it says finding a spot to pull over.
Governments around the world are trying to figure out the best rules for these special cars. And one big question is, who is responsible if a
Here's what I'll say. With the Trump administration coming in, expect to see much less regulation for these, especially with Elon being part of his team. And traditionally speaking, Trump being pro less regulation. And he literally said, anyone who has $1 billion will throw all the regulations out for you. I want to make sure I'm co-signing what I'm saying, because I don't want you guys to think I'm being biased or making things up. Trump $1 billion regulation. This is something paywall. You know what? Let's do Fox News, because I just want to make sure you guys know I'm not trying to be biased or anything like that. It says Trump makes vow to anyone who invests $1 billion or more in the U.S. Any person, company investing $1 billion or more in the United States of America will receive fully expedited approvals and permits, including, but no way limited to, all environmental approvals, Trump wrote on his Truth Social platform on Tuesday, adding, "Get ready to rock." Shortly after entering the Oval Office, I don't even think we need to read all of this, but there it is. I'm not making it up. And the most recent video I made discussing how Trump would affect rideshare drivers, I think that the lack of regulations will benefit Uber and Lyft as companies more than they will us as drivers.
Car crashes. Is it the car company? Is it the software makers? Or the person who owns the car? The person who was sitting in that Uber self-driving car was supposed to be monitoring. But what happens when there is no human in the car?
This is a really good question. I know I'd be interested in trying Tesla's rideshare business when they come out. The thing that would bother me is I don't want to be held responsible for what my car does while it's self-driving. That's the biggest concern I have. I would hate to throw my life away and go to jail because my car hit someone. So I would need to see an example of what happens when it happens to someone else, or I would need to see the laws surrounding it, because if I'm going to go to jail, I want it to be for something I decided to do, whether it was a mistake or on purpose, but I don't want to go to jail because of a self-driving car. And the example that they provided here, the lady, like I said, she was literally watching videos while she was supposed to be paying attention. So I agree with jail time for her. I do, based off of that, but I just don't know what it will look like when cars are driving themselves without people sitting in them, without a driver sitting in them.
Really impressive that it can even navigate a very narrow two-way street where it's very difficult for two cars to be on the same street. So it doesn't always technically follow the rules exactly. It will go onto another lane. If you think about it, so do humans. So that's probably a good thing.
In the US, regulations on self-driving cars are overseen by NHTSA at the federal level. It gives guidelines for automated driving systems, and they focus on ensuring safety for these vehicles. But these regulations are still developing, and states also have their own set of rules too.
It's really fascinating the vision it has. You see the things that it can see up ahead.
In the Trump era, we'll probably have to pay attention to the state. So one, Tesla has already said they're going to launch in Miami and Texas because the regulations there at the state level are already so lax. So expect to see rideshare companies to first offer autonomous driving services in similar places that have laxed regulation when it comes to self-driving cars. So if you live in one of those places, you're probably on the list of places to come to first.
Or on the left, and it's how can the cameras detect that there's a person so far up ahead on the left, or down the road that there's a garbage truck coming, things like that. It's really fascinating. So what does this mean for the future of drivers?
Let's look to Wuhan in China that has self-driving cars everywhere. So these are done by Baidu, and 5 years ago I actually saw them.
Baidu is the Google version, the Chinese version of Google, like literally a search engine. And I guess a technology company now.
Testing these and got to ride one.
So we're making turns and notice, just like a roller coaster, no hands.
By the end of the year, there will be 1,000 of these cars on the streets of Wuhan. With China's insanely fast adoption of new technology, this is expected to cause huge changes. See, these rides here can be as cheap as 50 cents, and many people are already saying they will never need to buy a car again. Meanwhile, one person commented on a viral video that driving schools, road inspectors, and taxis are all going to shut down. The rise of self-driving cars...
That might happen in China. Even getting a car in China is pretty difficult. Not just financially, because of their overpopulation, you have to wait to get get a license plate. It's something weird, not too sure on it. I don't think that'll happen in America. America's too car centric. But I don't expect Uber and Lyft to lower prices for customers just because self-driving cars are cheaper than humans. They're too greedy for that. So I don't see it having a strong impact on whether people or not like have cars or not in America. Maybe certain cities, but I don't really see that having a large impact here.
Big effects on jobs in the economy. See, it's bringing in new jobs in engineering and computer science, but at the same time, it will mean way fewer jobs for truck drivers and taxi drivers. Self-driving cars could also help the economy by cutting down on traffic jams and letting people use their time more efficiently. But to make these benefits happen, we'll need to invest a lot in things like roads and city planning and just the general adoption of new technology.
So this is a bit frustrating. I just ordered this car, but I can't communicate and say, hey, it's me. It says, no, the pickup is over there. So I gotta move out of the way so he can go, and then I have to walk and get in the car.
That's annoying.
Maybe the next version of it is gonna have
But you know what? Some drivers do that too.
facial recognition or something. So it can be like, hey, it's Upton. Oh God, don't make me walk up this hill. I am not gonna tip. So now it's saying, hey, we'll wait for 2 minutes. It's time to get in the car. It's
2-minute wait time. That's really low. If you're on Lyft, it's 5 minutes. If you're on Uber, I think it's 7.
actually quite dystopian to see these driving cars without humans inside them. And the backdrop of San Francisco, which has such a crisis of mental illness and homeless people, it's really, really weird to see something like so much from the future, but then the city is struggling with this big crisis and this big problem. And same with Los Angeles too, which also has Waymo now. Something I find quite interesting is that the digital screen on the top of the Waymos can actually be used for anything. So it says my initials before I get in. So I can be sure that, hey, this car is for me. The screen on top of the car, sometimes if the Waymo is at a stoplight or a red light, it'll just show a pedestrian. Now, why is it doing that? It's actually serving a purpose and providing value to, let's say, people behind the car or either other pedestrians on the street. It's saying, hey,
I want to see the screen he's talking about. It looks like he's looking at it, but he's not like pointing his camera at it.
hey, this car has stopped because there's a pedestrian in front of it. And that's really cool when you think about it, because right now cars, you know, when you put on your brakes, there's red lights to inform the person behind you, hey, I'm slowing down, so you better slow down too.
Oh, he's talking about the screen right there in the front. Sorry, I misunderstood.
But now you think about what screens can do for the future of driving and actually provide potentially more value. Now, how important is that? That's probably up for debate. Because it can be a little bit annoying, like we pulled into the parking lot and it's like, I want to go into this building, let me out. It doesn't understand voice commands, so it kind of went through the whole parking lot, made a right turn, and now it's letting me out. So sometimes little things like that might be a little frustrating. But what happens if you stand in front
That's one thing I guess human drivers can do pretty well.
of a self-driving car? Will it honk? Will it move? What's it gonna do? For every second I stand here, it's actually costing the company money, because this is a moment that it could be used to pick up other passengers. My cameraman is also blocking the other lane. So let's just see how smart this thing is. I'm actually surprised it hasn't honked yet. It might be calling rider support. So it's been a few minutes now. Okay, you win. So now you know what the future of self-driving cars is gonna look like, but I wanna know, what do you think? Is this a future, and how is it?
All right, so pretty good video. Go check out this guy's channel. Very well edited, very well spoken, very well researched. He literally drove to China. His name is Upton. Oh, he's actually a CNBC journalist. I didn't know that. Former. Like he just started his own thing. It's pretty good. It's pretty good. Let's see what else we have here. So that's man, that was a long road. We were originally talking about the Waymo study. Let's see. The first comment says, one of the 2 injury events listed in the Swiss Re report was serious. However, it was the result of a human-driven vehicle which ran a red light, chased by police, and then hit the Waymo, another car, and a pedestrian. Fault for the Waymo seems unlikely here, but insurers know claims can often be made against bystander vehicles and possibly are leaving this event on their list to cover the contingency. Otherwise, the Waymo record is even better. I think it goes from 2 to just 1 bodily injury. It says, yes, the deep pocket can be made to pay by a jury even if they did little to nothing wrong. And this is why insurance is so expensive. So expensive. And like, this needs to be fixed. And it bothers me. Someone says it's worth noting that 4 out of 6 authors appear to be Waymo employees. Yes, someone at Waymo had to work the Waymo data and Swiss Re people to work with the Swiss Re data. They had to bring the data together. Reasonable, but skepticism should still be applied. If typical scientific authorship conventions hold, the first author did the majority of the work while the others provided assistance pulling data or reviewing drafts. So Luigi Dilio at Swiss Re did the majority of the work. That's an assumption, I guess. The benchmark was calibrated using both mileage, driving exposure, and resident zip codes. Specifically, only the claims associated with vehicles registered to addresses within Waymo's operating zip codes in San Francisco, the Phoenix metropolitan region, Los Angeles, and Austin were included. Good to see their continued effort at making apples-to-apples comparison instead of resorting to misleading ones designed to appeal to the lowest common denominator. Okay, that's all right. So I get what they're saying. So when they said that the Waymo cars are safer than humans, they used the specific zip codes from residents where those cars already exist. So that's really good. They could have manipulated the data. They could have compared it to the worst cities in America for driving. They compared it to all of America, but they compared it to where the Waymos operated to the zip codes of other drivers in that area. So that makes the data like even stronger. It says Waymo can't operate on the highways or freeways, doesn't work during snow, ice, and never leaves the geofence. It's hard to find apples to apples for that. It's not a bad point. It says read the paper. They are all accounted for in the benchmark. Good point. I'm not reading the whole paper, not on stream, but that is a good point. Says the study compared Waymo's liability claims to human drivers' baselines, which are based on Swiss Re's data from over 500,000 claims over 200 billion miles. It found that the Waymo driver demonstrated better safety performance. We read this. I'm not rereading it. Only 10% as many accidents reported. That's pretty wild. And like the people who are talking about this and reading this, like these are regular people on the internet. They're like seeing this data, interpreting this data, accepting this data, and thinking about it when they're gonna like, this is what they're gonna think about. Will I try this car? Is this safer? And even we had a debate on X about like Uber Teen, and I know a lot of drivers are against Uber Teen. I'm for it because let me go through my points real quick. Anything that can encourage surges to appear on the map, I'm for it. I'm for hospital pickups. I'm for Uber Teen. One of the biggest pushbacks against Uber Teen is you can get in trouble as a driver very quickly, and due to the severity of like being underage, it could be bad for you. But that can happen whether it's a teenager or whether it's a regular person, and it has happened to me with regular people. And so I have put in systems, dash cam, screen recording, that protect me. So whether it's a teen or not, those things can happen. Now, personally, for me, I like to think I'm providing a safe ride for the teenager, but not all drivers are great. But I want you to think about it as a parent. Would you be more okay with rolling the dice and putting your kid in an Uber or in a self-driving car? Even if you're comfortable putting your kid in an Uber, let's say you don't qualify for Uber Teen or you're using Lyft, which doesn't have a teenage thing yet and it's cheaper. What if the driver has a problem with it? Now your kid's late for school or practice or whatever he has to do. So what's actually happening is in San Fran, parents using Waymo. So this article it's called Parents Hush Hush, Back to School Hack, sending their kids off in a Waymo. When his daughter logged into his Waymo account for the first time last year, Chris' life changed forever. His 15-year-old's first solo Robotaxi ride may not have been as momentous as her first steps, but for Chris and his wife, it was the best thing that ever happened. It was instantly awesome, said the San Francisco resident who chose to use only his first name to avoid having Waymo account banned, because it's still against the terms of service for people who are underage to take it. But because there's no human driver in there, there's a little more flexibility in what they can get away with. We don't have to worry about her getting home ever. Her daughter typically takes the bus to school, and either Chris or his wife takes her home. But the teen now has the option to call a Waymo Robotaxi, and her parents have an extra moment to themselves. Their daughter has a Waymo allowance of 3 rides a month, which isn't a lot, with any additional rides coming out of her pocket. Chris estimates she takes about 5 rides monthly, sometimes 2 or from theater rehearsals in near Civic Center, where he worries about her safety walking to public transportation. See, parents are thinking about safety. In this, Chris and his family are not alone. Busy parents all over San Francisco have a secret. They're turning to Waymo Robotaxis to take their children to school, pick them up, and ferry them to other destinations, even though solo use by minors is against the Robotaxis company's rules. One San Francisco venture capitalist said he and his wife have been sending their 2 middle schoolers off in Waymos 2 to 4 times a month for the past year. They wouldn't feel comfortable in an Uber or Lyft, but they feel perfectly comfortable in a Waymo, and I feel really safe because I can track it. So it's like there are these scenarios that are popping up that are going to encourage people to try this technology, and once they try the technology for that scenario, they're going to be more okay with trying that technology for other stuff. Like think about women, especially women who drink. And when women who drink are offered the chance to take a self-driving car or do Russian roulette on a driver who might try to hit on her or take advantage of her, what are they going to do? They're going to try the Waymo. And then when they sober up, they're going to be like, you know what? That wasn't that bad. Maybe I'll do this every time I go to work now. It's so weird to me to see drivers be like so optimistic that passengers won't try this service or that this service won't have an impact on what they're making, despite all of this information. It's so weird to me to see it. I don't think this is real. This is on Reddit. I don't think this is real. I'll share it with you anyways. It says new Uber release shows average tip to drivers. In the message, it says, Andrew saw your tip of 81 cents on average and has decided to pursue other opportunities. Yeah, that's fake. Like I said, sometimes I see the titles, I put them up there. That's fake. Yeah, let's keep going. So this one says, this is from the Lyft drivers Reddit, 4 hours ago. It says, first and last time I will ever sit at an airport queue, which I tell you guys all the time, at the airport, it's not where you need to be. Maybe for holiday seasons, maybe depending on the kind of car you drive. If you do like XL or if you do like black, maybe. But generally speaking, it doesn't work for me. I know it used to work in the past and it doesn't work anymore. Someone says I had an Uber drop off at the airport and saw Lyft was surging $6. So I decided for the first time ever, let's try out the queue. I watched the surge change over 20 to 30 times with zero demand there. I'm not surprised that they put surge on the airport till their drivers there to wait. Lyft knew there was no demand because the flights weren't landing for another 30 minutes. But they dropped that sweet $10 surge because F us and F overtime. I will say, I've noticed that by using scheduled rides and looking at them, I'm able to kind of guess when bonuses will appear because they put out bonuses about 30 minutes from when they need people somewhere when it comes to scheduled rides, probably for the airport too. So that's something you can think about. But then also consider that some of this is like algorithm based. It's like on this day at this time, usually there's this amount of flights. But as we're going into holiday season and normalcy is shifting, it's very possible that Lyft thinks it's going to be busy at this time. But because it's like holiday season, it's not going to be busy because no one is there. But they still might pop surges. So that's something you should be aware of as you're navigating the winter slowdown for Uber and Lyft. Let's see what people are saying. You provided a lot of screenshots. And when it comes to airport bonuses, like if you leave the airport, you don't get anything. And this is when it would be a good opportunity to use priority. I have a lot of thoughts on priority. We're not going to cover them today, but I have a lot of thoughts on priority. Someone says the queue is for suckers. I agree. Someone says, Matt, I go to the airport queue to use the bathroom. I also have nice trash bags. Okay, fine. Someone says, once you unlock any bonuses, you don't have to stay, which is false. It says airport surges only apply to airport rides. Yeah, something must have changed recently, or maybe it's different in city to city. I know in my city, the airport bonus does not stick if you leave the airport. So, and I think that's fair. I don't think that's unreasonable. All right, so this is an interesting one. This is a debate I have with cherry pickers all the time. And it's something I really want you cherry pickers out there to think about. So this one is found on Lyft. It says, sick of playing by Lyft's rules. So I just started back lifting 5 weeks ago. I played by the rules for the first 5 weeks, whatever that means. And after doing a 12-hour shift Sunday, 28 runs, and couldn't even crack $200. So I've decided to start cherry picking 6.5 hours today, 9 runs, 145, not bad at all. I declined 49 runs, all these trash $3 runs. And then he shares a screenshot. So here's the Sunday, $191, 28 rides, pretty much 12 hours. He only got 2 tips. On the 18th, he did 9 rides, 6 hours, $145. So he spent about less than half the time. He got a good tip here. No, he worked out. This worked out for him. This worked out very well for him. But I think that in this scenario, he definitely won. And you should definitely play around and figure out different scenarios. But I've seen drivers cherry pick so hard that they make less money per day in a way that, like, if they just accepted more, they would have made more money for that time. But in this case, he definitely would be better than that. He did well. He did well with his cherry picking this time around. So cherry picking can be useful sometimes. And sometimes I think drivers don't cherry pick very well and it actually hurts them in the long term. I left a comment. I'm going to delete this comment because it's a bad comment. I'm going to leave it. Whatever. Who cares? All right, so this one asks grocery stores. How do you guys feel about grocery stores pick up passengers with a full cart of stuff? Personally, I'll tell you what I do. I think that I don't mind grocery stores, even if it's like a cart. I pick the people with like 3 full carts. What I do is I help. And I don't help because I'm just trying to be nice. That's also part of it. I like being nice when it's not a huge inconvenience to me. I'm just being honest. I help because it's faster. I'm trying to get in and out. I'm trying to rack up these rides for my ride challenges. It's faster for me to just help. So I help them load it and I help them getting out. I know some people out there have mega issues with this, and I'm pretty sure we're about to see some of them. It says, FYI, riders don't expect help. They're expecting a ride in the trunk space to put their stuff. Some drivers really don't clean out their cars. I've never witnessed a driver get out of the car and help with groceries anyways. Either way, I don't expect help. I expect a ride. So they're not even expecting help. This person says, I help. It gives me the chance to stretch my back. And if they are in an apartment, I just help unload onto the sidewalk. I do that too. We don't have like 3, 4, or 5 story apartments here. Well, if I have to go inside a building to help, I'm not doing it. But if you're like in a 2-story apartment and the stairs are outside, I'll do that. That's fine. And I like this because it gives me a chance to get up, stretch my legs, and get some blood moving to different parts of my body. My last one was the last for a reason. I pull up and she comes and taps on the window and tells me to get out and load her groceries. That's not okay. Demanding is not okay. He canceled, left, and decided I was done with them. I don't feel like wasting time loading and unloading groceries, and I'm not dealing with entitlement anymore. Someone else can do them. He had a bad experience. I wouldn't carry that experience over into the next. Next guy says, I don't take groceries or Walmart, Target. Learned the hard way more than once. It's not that bad. Cancel not helping with groceries for $4, no tip. Plus, it's probably going to an apartment. I guess the kinds of apartments that you have matters too. This person says, I never get canceled on coming from a grocery store. This is interesting. I don't have a lot with me, but they don't know when they accept. Or maybe I do and don't notice because the driver is found to replace quickly. This person says, I've had elderly people with groceries that I assist in and out of my vehicle. Not only is it courteous, it speeds up the ride. Younger individuals with a few bags don't need help. I'm kind of like that too. Kinda. It just depends. If they don't have a lot, I let them figure it out themselves. This person says, I used to do this after college and I didn't own a car. I would never expect the drivers to help. I just needed the space and a ride home with my groceries. However, knowing how people can be, I'd be wary too if some people are so entitled. My question to those people who expect help is, if you had your own car and live alone, who the F was going to help you then? So this is the last one we're going to run through, and then I'm going to go spend some time with my wife. It says, they are Uber drivers. This is from a passenger. It says, personally, as a woman, I absolutely despise taking Ubers alone. A lot of drivers are absolutely shameless in harassing female riders. What is it with that? It's like you forgot that you're actually doing a job and providing a service and did not pay. What is with that? It's like you forgot that you're actually doing a job and providing a service and I did not pay $30 to escape the extreme cold this morning to be harassed the entire trip. Friendly conversation is one thing. Making me extremely uncomfortable the entire drive is another. Why is the immediate thought to start off with a compliment about my name and appearance? Thanks, but no thanks, sir. To that, I would say, what are some of my usual talking points? Hey, are you so-and-so? Usually the first thing I say. They get into the car, ask them how they are, and they ask me how I am. Typically, just from that interaction, I can determine if they're interested in having a conversation or not. And if I'm not sure, but I think they want to, the easiest thing to ask is, are you from here? Where are you from? Even people that have lived here for a number of years will say, I'm from here. And then that just, if they ask you back, where are you from? You'll know they want to have a conversation, and you can build conversations based off of that easy interaction. You should not be complimenting people on their physical looks. If you want to throw a compliment, right, what you do is you compliment items, not the person. If someone's wearing a nice dress, or if they got like a nice anime shirt on, I'm like, yo, I really like your shirt, or I think your dress is amazing. Not amazing, I wouldn't say amazing. Like, I like your dress. You keep it simple. But you don't want to make your passengers feel uncomfortable. For sure, you don't want to do that. Then he starts asking me about my relationship status. Why do you need to know if I'm single? And how old am I? None of your business. Where I work? Scary. What time I get off? Absolutely not. Ignoring every attempt I make to shift the conversation? Absurd. Telling me he can help me out sometimes and gives me rides for free or no charge? No thanks. I never want to be in your vehicle again. I reported this to Uber and they suspended his account, and my fear is that this person knows where I live. Just because he can't see my exact address in his app after the ride doesn't mean he has goldfish memory and can't remember. This is so unacceptable. So many levels. Y'all, okay, the writing is messing me up a little bit. Y'all should be required to have audio and video recording devices installed in your vehicles to keep you and your passengers in line. She can activate that, to the best of my knowledge. How many women have you treated this way in your vehicle before me? Who reported it and got you kicked off the platform? The reason I knew where this was going. I didn't read this beforehand, but this is something drivers who are trying to convert passengers the incorrect way to private rides have to think about their approach, and not just their approach, how they might have been approached in the past. Other drivers can make passengers feel defensive when you don't give them a reason to be defensive. And that's something you got to think about, because you don't want to get deactivated on Uber and Lyft when you need them. So there's something to think about. Let's see what the comments say. This person says, this is partly why I had a dash cam with an inside camera as well. I refuse to be associated with the creeps that do this kind of thing. Uber drivers don't seem to think things through. I agree. That's essentially what I just said. He says, please report every inappropriate driver. We're trying to get them booted off the system. They don't belong with Uber or any rideshare. This person says, driver here. I used to get harassed by a lot of male passengers. Then I started wearing a wedding ring and make it apparent I am not available. Doesn't matter that I'm single. Lie. I also keep a stun gun, and if a guy gets too weird, I just tell him I have a penis. That's hilarious. Someone says, unfortunately, 3/4 of women have a horror story about a guy being a complete douche in rideshare cases. It's even worse as you're kind of trapped. My dudes, your customers are not your dating pool. You drive Uber, you are not a must-have or a treat not to be missed. Back the F off, don't be a creep, and drive the effing car. If a woman is interested, she will let you know. End of story. I like this. To the point. And of course, as I end the show, I'm going to point out that self-driving cars don't hit on women. And most Uber and Lyft drivers are men. So it's something to think about the next time your passenger tells you they'd never take a self-driving car.